प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनीज हैं उनकी बात करेंगे। सो यहाँ पर हम सेबी कंप्लायंसेस इग्नोर कर देंगे क्योंकि दैट इज एप्लीकेबल टू लिस्टेड कंपनी, सो वी विल नॉट डिस्कस अबाउट द XBRL रिपोर्टिंग ऑल्सो। सो बात करते हैं प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी, तो दो तरीके की कंप्लायंसेस हैं। कंप्लायंसेस विच इज रिलेटेड टू द रजिस्ट्रार, जो मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कॉर्पोरेट अफेयर्स है उसके अंदर, जो कि सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट के अंदर आती है, उसके अंदर आते हैं रीजनल डायरेक्टर्स, एंड रीजनल डायरेक्टर्स के अंदर काम करते हैं ROC। सो एक कॉर्पोरेट को अगर अपने कंप्लायंसेस करने हैं, चाहे वो एनुअल है, इवेंट बेस्ड है, या फिर स्टार्ट इनकॉर्पोरेशन के टाइम पर है, तो वो सारे के सारे कम्युनिकेशन कॉरेस्पॉन्डेंस होती है कंपनीज की ROC के साथ, रजिस्ट्रार ऑफ कंपनीज। सो हम पढ़ेंगे, हम यहाँ पर जानेंगे कि ROC कंप्लायंसेस क्या है, और कुछ हम बात करेंगे नॉन ROC कंप्लायंसेस, जो कि कंप्लायंसेस कंपनीज को तो करनी है लेकिन वो ROC की परव्यू में इसलिए नहीं आती क्योंकि वो दूसरे एक्ट्स की कंप्लायंसेस हैं। ओके, सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल अगर हम ROC कंप्लायंसेस की बात करें तो उसको हम तीन कैटेगरीज में बांट सकते हैं। एक है एनुअल कंप्लायंसेस, जो कि हर एक कंपनी को, हर एक प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी को ईयरली बेसिस पे, एनुअल बेसिस पे करनी पड़ती है, और ये एनुअल वन टाइम कंप्लायंसेस है। इवेंट बेस्ड कंप्लायंसेस, ये वो जैसे कि एनुअल कंप्लायंसेस का एग्जांपल होगा कि हर एक कंपनी को अपनी एनुअल फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स प्लस एनुअल रिटर्न फाइल करनी पड़ती है। MGT 7 एनुअल रिटर्न और AOC 4 फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स के लिए फाइल करना पड़ता है। तो दीज आर द एग्जांपल्स ऑफ एनुअल कंप्लायंसेस। इवेंट बेस्ड कंप्लायंसेस, ये ये कंपनीज को ये वाली कंप्लायंसेस तभी करनी होती है जब वो इवेंट अकर होता है। अगर वो इवेंट अकर नहीं होता तो उस ईयर वो कंप्लायंसेस करनी ही नहीं होगी। जैसे कंपनी की मैनेजमेंट के अंदर चेंज आता है, डायरेक्टर्स का अपॉइंटमेंट होता है, डायरेक्टर्स नए अपॉइंट होते हैं या पुराने डायरेक्टर छोड़ के चले जाते हैं, कंपनी की जो शेयर कैपिटल है उसको इशू किया जाता है या बायबैक किया जाता है शेयर्स को। सो तब, या फिर कंपनी अपना रजिस्टर्ड ऑफिस चेंज कर रही है तब। फिर आती हैं अदर कंप्लायंसेस। अदर कंप्लायंसेस का मतलब है जो कि हम ये कहेंगे ना तो एनुअल कंप्लायंसेस ना ही इवेंट बेस्ड है, जो कि कंपनी को अपना लीगल स्टेटस बनाए रखने के लिए जरूरी होता है कि वो बना मेंटेन करके रखें या कंप्लायंसेस करें उन चीजों का। तो जैसे कि डायरेक्टर्स का KYC, ठीक है, डायरेक्टर्स को अपना KYC अपडेट करना पड़ता है। ऐसे बहुत सारे रजिस्टर्स हैं जो कि इवेंट बेस्ड नहीं है ज्यादातर, या एंड जो कि हर एक कंपनी को थ्रू आउट द ईयर मेंटेन करके रखने पड़ते हैं। सो अब हम बात कर रहे हैं एनुअल कंप्लायंसेस। एनुअल कंप्लायंसेस के अंदर भी मैंने दो कैटेगरीज जो हम फर्स्ट लेकर चल रहे हैं, हम फर्स्ट लेकर चल रहे हैं कि अगर कोई कंपनी नई बनती है तब उसको क्या कंप्लायंसेस करने हैं, और फिर हम बात करेंगे सब्सीक्वेंट ईयर्स में उसको क्या क्या कंप्लायंसेस करने। तो जो भी कंपनीज 2019 के बाद बननी स्टार्ट हुई, जिनके जो विद शेयर कैपिटल बनी, उनको कमेंसमेंट ऑफ बिजनेस सर्टिफिकेट लेना जरूरी है। ये सर्टिफिकेट हर एक कंपनी को विद इन 180 डेज ऑफ इनकॉर्पोरेशन लेना पड़ता है, और इसके लिए जो फॉर्म स्पेसिफाइड है, जो फाइल करना पड़ता है, डेट इज INC 20A। अगर कंपनी इसका कंप्लायंस नहीं करती तो कंपनी के ऊपर जो फाइन है वो 50,000 तक का लग सकता है, और जो डायरेक्टर्स हैं जो डिफॉल्ट करेंगे, जो इस चीज के, इसकी कंप्लायंस के लिए रिस्पॉन्सिबल थे, उनके ऊपर 1,000 रुपए पर डे का फाइन लग सकता है। नेक्स्ट हम बात करेंगे, कंपनी जैसे ही बनती है तो अब यहाँ पर हम दोनों चीजें कवर करेंगे। एक ये चीज कवर करेंगे कि जब भी कोई कंपनी बनती है तो हम जो पहला उसका जो फाइनेंशियल ईयर है उसके लिए जो ऑडिटर अपॉइंट करना होता है, जिसको हम फर्स्ट ऑडिटर बोलते हैं, वो फर्स्ट ऑडिटर कब तक अपॉइंट करना पड़ता है। तो फर्स्ट ऑडिटर विद इन 30 डेज ऑफ इनकॉर्पोरेशन, जैसे ही कंपनी को सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ इनकॉर्पोरेशन मिला उसके 30 डेज के अंदर अंदर कंपनी को क्या करना पड़ेगा, ऑडिटर अपॉइंट करना पड़ता। लेकिन ये ऑडिटर कंपनी तो अपने तो अपॉइंट कर लिया, लेकिन जो भी कंपनी की फर्स्ट AGM होगी, उस फर्स्ट AGM के अंदर शेयर होल्डर्स को रिजोल्यूशन पास करके इस फर्स्ट ऑडिटर की अपॉइंटमेंट को रेटिफाई करना पड़ेगा, अप्रूव करना पड़ेगा। और जैसे ही वो क्या कहते हैं एजीएम जिसमें ये रेटिफिकेशन हुई, उसके बाद कंपनी को फॉर्म फाइल करना पड़ता है, फॉर्म ADT 1, जिसमें कंपनी कंफर्म करती है कि हमने ऑडिटर अपॉइंट कर लिया है और इसकी कंफर्मेशन अब जो मेंबर्स है उन्होंने इसको रेटिफाई कर दिया है। तो ये ROC के पास फाइल की जाती है जैसे ही एजीएम खत्म होती है जिसमें रेटिफिकेशन होती है, उसके 15 डेज के अंदर। अब आती है बोर्ड मीटिंग से रिलेटेड कंप्लायंसेस। जो फर्स्ट बोर्ड मीटिंग होनी चाहिए वो 30 डेज के अंदर अंदर होनी चाहिए किसी भी कंपनी की। जैसी कंपनी बनी है उसके 30 डेज के अंदर अंदर फर्स्ट बोर्ड मीटिंग होगी। और सब्सिक्वेंट बोर्ड मीटिंग्स कब होनी चाहिए, इसके लिए मैं आपको बताता हूँ। जैसे कोई कंपनी ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्ट करती है तो वो कंपनी इस साल नहीं बनी, या फिर कंपनी की फर्स्ट बोर्ड मीटिंग हो चुकी है, उसके बाद हर एक कंपनी को कितनी बोर्ड मीटिंग करनी है, हर एक साल के अंदर कितनी बोर्ड मीटिंग, 4 बोर्ड मीटिंग करनी पड़ती है, एटलीस्ट 4 बोर्ड मीटिंग्स करनी पड़ती है। लेकिन जो दो बोर्ड मीटिंग्स हैं आपस में, दो बोर्ड मीटिंग्स के बीच में 120 से ज्यादा दिन का डिफरेंस नहीं हो सकता। यहाँ पर इसकी इंटरप्रिटेशन ये निकल कर आती है कि अगर मान लीजिए कोई कंपनी कंप्लायंसेस नहीं कर रही, मतलब यहाँ पर अगर हम बात करें कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस को प्रमोट करने के लिए, CA Prahlad ji, you have to wait for that. Okay, and I will come to those topics also. Okay, so I would request the audience to please help me to maintain the flow of the presentation. I will take your doubts for sure. Okay, yeah. So जो कंपनी है उसको, जैसे मैं यहाँ पर एक एग्जांपल लेना चाहूंगा कि मान लीजिए 1 अप्रैल से लेकर 2024 से लेकर 31 मार्च 2025 तक का फाइनेंशियल ईयर है। अब इसमें कंपनी को 4 बोर्ड मीटिंग्स करनी है। यहाँ पर ये लॉ मेकर ने ये क्यों रखा कि 4 बोर्ड मीटिंग होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि कंपनी के अंदर जो डिसीजंस ली जाए उस मतलब कंपनी के अंदर अगर बोर्ड मीटिंग्स होंगी तो कंपनी का जो ऑपरेशनल एस्पेक्ट्स हैं वो काफी अच्छे से चलेंगे, कंप्लायंसेस होंगी। तो इसलिए 4 बोर्ड मीटिंग लॉ मेकर ने मैंडेट कर दिया है। 4 से ज्यादा भी कर सकते हैं पर 4 मिनिमम है। अब कुछ कंपनीज जो कि मान लीजिए, ये 120 डेज वाला कंसेप्ट क्यों आया, ये 120 डेज वाला इसलिए आया, कुछ डब्बा बेस्ड कंपनीज अगर एग्जिस्ट करती हैं या फिर कुछ नॉन ऑपरेटिंग कंपनीज हैं जो सिर्फ बनाई गई है नाम नाम के लिए, तो उनके केस में ये देखा जाता है कि वो कंपनीज क्या कर सकती हैं, वो कंपनीज ऐसा कर सकती हैं, वो एक ही महीने में 4 मीटिंग्स दिखा दें, वो एक ही महीने के अंदर या एक हफ्ते के अंदर 4 मीटिंग्स दिखा दें, तो वो सिर्फ फॉर द सेक ऑफ कंप्लायंसेस करी जा रही होंगी, पर वो इफेक्टिवली मतलब उनके पीछे कोई सब्सटेंस नहीं होगा, कमर्शियल सब्सटेंस नहीं होगा। सो इसलिए लॉ मेकर ने कहा कि 2 मीटिंग्स के बीच में मैक्सिमम टाइम पीरियड कितना हो सकता है, 120 डेज। ओके, इससे ज्यादा नहीं हो सकता। नेक्स्ट, आपको जब भी आप एक क्या कहते हैं बोर्ड मीटिंग करेंगे, तो आपको बोर्ड मीटिंग का जो नोटिस है वो डायरेक्टर्स को आपको देना पड़ेगा 7 डेज इन एडवांस। तो मैं आपको बताता हूँ ये कंप्लायंसेस मैंडेटरी है हर एक कंपनी के लिए, एक्सेप्ट ओपीसी। 1 पर्सन कंपनी के अंदर एक ही डायरेक्टर होता है, सिंगल पर्सन अपने आप से मीटिंग नहीं कर सकता, इसलिए वहां पर ये एप्लीकेबल नहीं होता। बाकी हर एक कंपनी के लिए एप्लीकेबल है बोर्ड मीटिंग और बोर्ड मीटिंग का नोटिस। तो मैं आपको कुछ फॉर्मेट दिखाना चाहूंगा यहाँ पर। ये श्योर ऋषभ, वी विल वॉच दैट। ओके, तो हाँ, या मैं आप लोगों को यहाँ पर कुछ फॉर्मेट्स दिखाना चाहूंगा। वो फॉर्मेट्स हैं यहाँ पर, या जस्ट वेट फॉर अ मिनट। हाँ जी, ये आपको मिनट्स भी बना के रखने हैं। आप जब भी बोर्ड मीटिंग करेंगे तो आपको, चाहे वो जनरल मीटिंग है चाहे वो बोर्ड मीटिंग है, आपको उसके मिनट्स बनाने होते हैं। तो ये रफ फॉर्मेट है जहाँ पे आपको मीटिंग का सीरियल नंबर, मीटिंग किस डेट डे पर हुई, किस डेट पर हुई, किस वेन्यू पर हुई, कितने डायरेक्टर्स प्रेजेंट थे, ठीक है। आपको हर एक पेज नंबर की नंबरिंग करनी पड़ेगी, अटेंडेंस मार्क करनी पड़ेगी हर एक की, और कितने लोगों को आपने बुलाया था, और चेयरमैन, यहाँ पे आपका चेयरमैन ऑफ द मीटिंग वाज इलेक्टेड और नॉट, इसके बारे में यूनानिमसली इलेक्टेड और नॉट, इसके बारे में इंफॉर्मेशन जाएगी। और फिर यहाँ पर आप बता सकते हैं कि कॉरम बना नहीं बना। और उसके बाद अब प्रीवियस जो मीटिंग्स हैं उसके जो मिनट्स हैं उनको अप्रूव किया जाता है, उनको कंफर्म किया जाता है। ऐसे ही फिर आप रजिस्टर ऑफ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, ये मुद्दे हो सकते हैं, नोटिस ऑफ डिस्क्लोजर ऑफ इंटरेस्ट, मतलब अगर कुछ डायरेक्टर्स वगैरह का इंटरेस्ट है ट्रांजेक्शन्स के अंदर, वो डिस्क्लोज करना पड़ेगा। दिस इज द एग्जाम्पल, आई कांट रीड द एंटायर डॉक्यूमेंट बिकॉज हमारी जो प्रेजेंटेशन है वो बहुत ज्यादा कवरेज नहीं कर पाएगी टॉपिक्स।
Of course we can share this in the email,
या
and of
आई
course
विल शेयर
WhatsApp
ऑल
also, हम
डॉक्यूमेंट
कर
विद
देंगे ये शेयर एक ड्राफ्ट ना।
या एंड लेट मी शो द मीट notice of the meeting also with you. So this is very, very small. This is one pager or two pager. Okay. So here you have to mention the agendas. What is important is the agenda to be discussed in the board meeting. And यहाँ पर जो डायरेक्टर ऑथराइज होगा या फिर जो चेयरमैन है वो आपको क्या कहते हैं, मीटिंग का नोटिस भेजेगा फॉर एंड ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ द कंपनी, ओके, ऑन द बिहाफ ऑफ द बोर्ड ऑफ द कंपनी. So coming back to the board meeting compliances. Okay, so AGM, talking about the AGM. So first AGM कितनी जो कंपनी बनी है उसकी फर्स्ट एजीएम कब होनी चाहिए? उसकी फर्स्ट एजीएम 9 मंथ्स के अंदर होनी चाहिए, जब फर्स्ट फाइनेंशियल ईयर के अकाउंट्स क्लोज हो रहे हैं। मैं आपको यहाँ पर एक और चीज बताया था कि फाइनेंशियल ईयर से रिलेटेड, कि अगर कोई कंपनी जनवरी से 31 मार्च के बीच में बनती है तो उसका जो फाइनेंशियल ईयर है वो, अगर फर्स्ट जन से 31 मार्च के बीच में बनती है तो 3 महीने से छोटा हो गया। तो इसलिए फर्स्ट फाइनेंशियल ईयर जो कंपनी का है वो 12 मंथ से ज्यादा हो सकता है। हम जैसे मान लीजिए कोई कंपनी है 2 फरवरी को बनी, 2 फरवरी 2024 को बनी, तो उसका फर्स्ट फाइनेंशियल ईयर 2 फरवरी 2024 से लेके दो 31 मार्च 2025 तक नहीं होगा, उसका होगा 2 फरवरी 2024 से लेके 31 मार्च 2025 तक, ओके, फॉर फर्स्ट। अब ये फाइनेंशियल ईयर मान लीजिए खत्म हुआ, अगर कोई कंपनी मान लीजिए बनी होती दिसंबर 2023 में, 16 दिसंबर 2023, तो उसका तो फर्स्ट फाइनेंशियल ईयर एंड होता 31 मार्च 2024 को। ओके, तो कोई भी केस है, मान लीजिए अगर यहाँ पर फाइनेंशियल ईयर एंड हो रहा है तो हमें फर्स्ट एजीएम कब करनी है? हमें फर्स्ट एजीएम विद इन 9 मंथ्स ऑफ द एंड ऑफ द फाइनेंशियल ईयर करनी है। लेकिन अब सब्सिक्वेंट फाइनेंशियल ईयर की बात आती है, सब्सिक्वेंट ईयर्स की, तो वहां पर एजीएम, ठीक है, एजीएम कब करनी है? सो मैं आपको बताता हूँ कि सब्सिक्वेंट एजीएम्स की जाती हैं जब भी आपका फाइनेंशियल ईयर एंड हो रहा है, उसके विद इन 6 मंथ्स के अंदर, उसके विद इन 6 मंथ्स के अंदर आपकी एजीएम हो जानी चाहिए। और एक और बात यह है कि आपने जो एजीएम पहले की थी पिछले साल और इस साल की एजीएम, दो एजीएम्स के बीच में गैप मैक्सिमम 15 मंथ्स का हो सकता है, बस इससे ज्यादा नहीं हो सकता। एजीएम के मुद्दे क्या होते हैं? एजीएम के अंदर जनरली ऑर्डिनरी बिजनेस डिस्कस किया जाता है। ऑर्डिनरी बिजनेस के अलावा आप एजेंडा और भी एक्सटेंड कर सकते हैं, पर जनरली किस लिए किया जाता है? ये फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स आफ्टर ऑडिट अप्रूव कर ली जाए, किसके द्वारा? मेंबर्स के द्वारा, ओके, मतलब शेयर होल्डर्स के द्वारा। अगर कंपनी के डायरेक्टर्स ने बोर्ड मीटिंग में कुछ डिविडेंड रिकमेंड किया है तो उसका फाइनलाइजेशन, अप्रूवल और डिक्लेरेशन यहां पर हो जाए। और कोई डायरेक्टर्स को अपॉइंट करना है या रीअपॉइंट करना है तो वो यहाँ पर होता है, और रेम्यूनरेशन ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स भी डिसाइड यहाँ होता है, यहाँ पर अपॉइंटमेंट ऑफ ऑडिटर्स भी होता है। Okay, so these are the four agendas which are usually discussed in, which are usually, okay, occur in every AGM. Okay, ये आपकी AGM जो है ये बिजनेस आवर्स में ही हो सकती है, ऑन अ डे विच इज नॉट अ पब्लिक हॉलीडे। और ये कहाँ होनी चाहिए? ये हो सकती है कंपनी के रजिस्टर्ड ऑफिस में, या फिर किसी ऐसी जगह, सिटी, विलेज, टाउन पे जो कि रजिस्टर्ड ऑफिस के आसपास सिचुएटेड, जहां पर आपका रजिस्टर्ड ऑफिस सिचुएटेड है उसी सिटी विलेज के अंदर हो सकती है। अब हम बात करेंगे, ये हमारी बात थी कि कोई कंपनी नई बनी तो उसको क्या क्या करना था। उसमें हमने ऑडिटर की बात करी, हमने बोर्ड मीटिंग्स की बात करी, एनुअल मीटिंग्स की बात करी, एनुअल जनरल मीटिंग की बात करी। अब एनुअल आरओसी कंप्लायंसेस क्या क्या है कि हर एक कंपनी को, हर एक प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी को अपने एनुअल अकाउंट्स, फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स और रिटर्न्स, एनुअल रिटर्न, ठीक है, विच इज रिलेटेड। एनुअल रिटर्न है क्या? एक ऐसी इंफॉर्मेशन है जो कि कंपनी की जो मैनेजमेंट है उसके बारे में बताता है, इंटरनल मैनेजमेंट के बारे में एक ओवरव्यू है। सो हियर, एंड कंपनी को कुछ डिटेल्स अपनी देनी होती है, शेयर होल्डर, डायरेक्टर से रिलेटेड, मैनेजमेंट से रिलेटेड, वो एनुअल रिटर्न के अंदर जाती है। तो सबसे पहली जो सबसे अहम आती है वो आती है फॉर्म AOC 4, फाइलिंग ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स। आई एम नॉट टेकिंग हियर कंसोलिडेटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स, उसके लिए फॉर्म AOC 4 CFS होता है। Okay, Manoj Ram, I will speak in English. Okay, and yeah, notice can be sent by mail. Yeah, notice can be sent by mail. Okay, so this form AOC 4 is very, 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 very important. Okay, if you have a company or your client is having a company and you are responsible for the ROC compliances, okay, you are taking an engagement for ROC compliances, then this is to be filed every year, okay, on annual basis. When it is to be filed, this form is for, if you are filing form AOC 4, okay, for the client, that means your client is submitting financial statement, filing its financial statements with ROC. Okay, so this must be filed within 30 days of the from the end of the AGM. Okay, this is to be filed within 30 days. And my colleague, okay, will discuss in the next session about how to file this form actually. Okay, then next is, this is also very, very important, this is MGT 7, that is annual return. So a company is required, okay, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs wants some information related to the shareholding pattern, related to the internal management, about the board meetings. Okay, that all information is to be filed through annual return, and the prescribed form is MGT 7. What is the meaning of the MGT? MGT here means management. Okay, so this is form number 7. It is to be filed within 60 days of the annual general meeting, of the date of the AGM. And here, this date is not due date of AGM. This is actual date of AGM. Okay. Then we have, this is also very, very important. We have DIR 12, that is for the appointment or resignation of directors. So if any new director is appointed, or any of the director resigns from the entity or from the company, then there will be a change in the company's directorship pattern, okay, management's pattern. So that changes is to be filed within a form with ROC through a form, that is DIR 12. When it is to be filed, this is to be filed within 30 days of the change. That is 30 days of the date of the appointment or resignation of the director. This is to be filed by company, okay, not by the director. Then This compliance is also very important. Okay, suppose a company gives you the engagement and you are also responsible for the compliances you are taking in that engagement. You are taking the compliances of the directors also. Then directors, this compliance is not for the company, this is for the director, from the side of director. So directors are required to submit their KYC details through a form, that is GIR 3, okay, each year. Okay, this is to be filed by 30th September of each year. Okay, and this form can be filed by those directors only who have their DIN, okay, and it is approved. Okay, and it is approved, okay, till 31st of that year. Okay, if a person is a director and he is holding a approved DIN and he makes a non-compliance, then he have to bear a penalty of rupees 5,000. Okay, next is DPT 3, that is return of the deposit. This is not applicable for all the companies. If the company, okay, accept some deposit or other non-deposit receipts, then the company is required to file this DPT, okay, deposits form number 3, return of deposit, by 30th June of the financial year. Next is this director's report. Okay, so I will share with you the format of the director's report also. Okay, there is no prescribed format of the director's report by the MCA. Okay, but I will give you a format which is prevailing. Okay, which is acceptable by many of the practitioners and many of the entities. Okay, which are private limited. Okay, so director's report is required as per section 134. Okay, so it should be authorized. So here the in director's reports, director mentions what are their future prospect, what are their key intakes, and what are their concluding remarks on the company's performance. Okay, and what are their strategies for the future endeavors of the company. This is to be mentioned. Okay, this is the information which is mentioned in the director's report. Okay, it is mandatory. Okay, although there is no prescribed format for this, but it is mandatory and it is to be authorized by chairperson, or if the chairperson does not authorize, then two directors, okay, authorize this director's report, signs this director report. Then there are some, now we are coming to the very important aspect, which is, you can say that this is the actual, okay, secretarial compliances for a company, that is maintenance of statutory registers and the books of accounts. So statutory registers means the registers which are mandated by the Companies Act 2013 or the amended acts and the rules made there under. Okay, so a company is required to maintain registers such as and records such as minutes of the board meeting, AGMs, books of accounts, financial statement, register of members, register of charges, and various documents which are filed with the ROC. So talking about the statutory registers, okay, so in case of private limited company, there are roughly 15 registers which are prescribed under Companies Act and rule made there under. Okay, so for some registers, I would say that for maximum, okay, maximum categories of register, there is a prescribed format, or if there is no format, then the rules prescribes the minimum content, that is that what should be mentioned in those registers. Okay, so some registers are applicable to all the companies, while some registers are applicable only if a particular event occurs. Okay, so we have first register of deposits. Okay, this is not applicable for all the companies. Okay, because if a company does not accept the deposits, then it is not applicable. So as per section 76 and 73, read with rule 14 of acceptance of deposits, okay, a company is required, okay, to maintain a register of deposits for a period of 8 years. Okay, and whenever the entity accepts such deposit for that particular financial year, the company have to make the following entries in that register. Okay, so that is name, PAN, or address of the depositors. Okay, if there are minors, or then the details of the guardians. Okay, nominee details of the depositors, date and amount of each deposit, deposit receipt number issued by the company, interest rate on those deposits, duration of such deposits, repayable date, that is the what is the maturity date of that particular deposit, and so on. Now this is very, very important. Okay, if you are filing, if you are maintaining, if you are doing secretarial compliances on the behalf of your client, or your client itself is doing maintaining this register, then these are the documents from which you can take the information. So these are the reference document from which you can take these details for maintenance of this register. So these are DPT1, DPT3, deposit 1, deposit 3, which is filed with the registrar, ROC, financial statements. Okay, there you will get the pattern of the depositors in the notes to accounts. Then we have auditor's report of the company and disclosures in the director's report. Okay, next is we have register of security holders. So in security, we mean shares, we mean debentures, we mean preference shares. Okay, so every company is required to keep and maintain the following register, that is register of members, separately for equity shares and separately for preference shares. There would be a separate register for debenture holders and other security holders. Okay, now in these registers the following information usually came, that is name, address, or email, or other credentials like PAN, unique identification number, SIN, in case of companies, if company is a investor in your company, and name of the spouse or their names, date of commencement of membership, when they became the member in your company, date of cessation of membership, when they leave the membership, if they sell the share, then they will be ceased from the membership. Then so in this register of security holders, we have register of members. Okay, this register of members is to be prepared as per section 88, as per with rule 3 of the company's rules. This is to be maintained in form number MGT1, and this is to be updated within 7 days. This is very, very important. This is to be updated within 7 days of any allotment or transfer of shares. Okay, now you can, for maintaining this register, okay, you need some information. You can take the information from pass 3, form number pass 3, shareholder form number 4, and certified copy of the board or general meeting resolutions, which is part on in those meetings, share certificates, or the list of shareholders which you filed in the annual return, which you mentioned in the annual return. Then we have register of the other security holders like debenture holders. So this is to be maintained as per section 88, as per rule 4 of the company's rules. This is to be maintained in the form number MGT2, and this is again to be updated within 7 days of allotment or transfer. Or if there is a case of any pledge, lien, or hypothecation, okay, if your security holders, okay, pledges the shares, okay, then you have to make the update within 15 days. So you can take the information from pass 3 again, shareholder 4, or certified copy of the board resolution or general meeting resolutions, debenture certificates, and financial statements. of the client. Now, can a company maintain a foreign register? Okay, yeah, foreign register means uh, a foreign register can also be maintained. Okay, so this is to be maintained as per section 88 with rule number 7. Okay, it is to be maintained only if it is written in the article of association of the company. Okay, so company can keep a register somewhere else also, but it is to be maintained in the same format as that of the principal register of members. Okay, so within 30 days of the opening of this foreign register, form number MGT 3 is to be filed with the ROC. ओके एंड एनी एंट्री मेड इन दी फॉरेन रजिस्टर उसको आपको इंडिया में भी अपडेट करना है कितने दिन के अंदर दैट इज टू बी अपडेटेड विद इन 15 days. Okay, and copy of this foreign register is to be maintained in India also. Okay, next is we have register of directors and KMP. Okay, this is to be maintained as per section 170 rule number 17. Okay, so here what details you mention in this is very very important. Okay, register of directors and KMP. So here you will give the particulars, name, address, occupation, okay, and the of the directors and KMP, as well as any securities held by them, okay, by the directors and KMP in the company or its subsidiary or its holding or its associate or subsidiary of the holding company. Okay, so you have to mention those details. So these are this register is to be kept at the company's registered office only. Okay, here you mention the din of the directors, name and surname, previous name or surname, father's name, okay, or their spouse name, date of birth, nationality, residential status, date of board resolution in which they are appointed, date of their appointment, reappointment, date of their cessation, or reasons for their cessation. Okay, so you can take the details from DIR 12, or you can take the copy of board. You can refer to the board resolution or shareholder resolutions minutes, and you can also take the master data. Okay, you know that master data is available on MCA 21 portal, and you can take the help of the MBP 1 and DIR 18, which is given by the directors to the company. Next is register of charges. Okay, this is very very important. Whenever a company raises funds, okay, raises a loan, and company creates some charge on its assets, okay, then company have to maintain as per section 85 with rule number 10 a register of charges in the form number CHG7. Okay, so this the charges can be created. Okay, what is the meaning of charge? Charge means whenever you raise funds from a financial institution, bank, or some lender, you create some security to secure the repayment of that amount to in favor of the creditor or lender. You create some charges, okay, against your property, assets, or the undertaking of the company. Okay, then you have to maintain a register of charges. Okay, so you have to mention on which property, okay, which property you have acquired and which property is subject to the charges. And if there is any modification means you repay the amount, okay, and there is satisfaction of that particular charge, or suppose there was a floating charge, okay, and your sum of your property is released, that is also a modification, or you increase the amount of charge, then that is also a modification. You have to change you have to make entries for that also, and you have to file a form CHG1 and CHG4 for that. This is to be maintained permanently at the company's registered office, and the instrument, the agreement, okay, when you create a charge in the favor of the lender or creditor, then there is a document which is executed. That instrument is to be kept for a period of 8 years. okay, from the date of satisfaction of that particular charge, not the date of the creation of the charge. So you can refer for maintaining this register, you can refer to the form CHG1, CHG4, MGT14, financial statements of the company, and the loan agreements, that is the instruments. Then we have registered of renewed and duplicate share certificates. So I am skipping this. Okay, this is not so important. Okay, so you have to maintain this form in form number SH2. Okay, and this is apart from the register of members. Okay, so here whenever there are instances that whatever share certificate, physical script you issued to your shareholders, okay, company issued to the to its shareholders, then those share certificates can be mutilated or torn or destroyed or worn out, okay, defaced. Then the company issue duplicate by taking affidavit from the, okay, shareholder, that particular shareholder, company issue duplicate share certificate or renew the share certificates. Okay, then you have to maintain a register for those particulars in form number SH2. Okay, this is to be permanently preserved and it is to be in the custody of the company CS, or if there is no company CS, then it is to be in the custody of a person who is authorized by the board of the company. Okay, then all the entries in this register are to be authenticated by the company CS or the person authorized by the board, and this can be kept at the registered office of the company or where the register of member is kept. Then we have register of employee stock options. This is to be maintained in the form number SS6. This is to be kept at the company's registered office, okay, or any place which is decided by the board, approved by the board. This is also to be authenticated, okay, approved by the every entry in this register is to be authenticated by, approved by company secretary of the company or person authorized by the board of directors. Next, we have register of shares. This is very, very important. This is to be maintained by every company unless the company is formed by guarantee. Okay, so register of shares and other. So this is to be maintained in form number SH10. So it includes particular like passing of the special resolution, date of passing of the special resolution for the buyback of, in case of buyback of the securities, date of board's approval, number and price of the securities buyback, okay, date and date of opening and closing of the buyback offer which is given to the shareholders, okay, and date when the buyback was executed or successfully completed. Then we have register of loans, guarantees, securities, which is to be maintained in form number MBP2. Okay, it is to be maintained as per section 186, read with rule number 12. This is to, and all the entries are to be maintained chronologically and entries are to be made within 7 days. Okay, so you can refer these information for making this, for preparing this register, that is board or shareholder meeting, general meeting resolutions, MGT, form MGT 14. What is form MGT 14? Whenever a company passes a special resolution, the company is required to intimate to the registrar about that resolution, and that resolution, that is form number MGT 14. Okay, and CHD, which is for the charges with the registered with the registrar, financial statements of the company, auditor report, director's report, okay, if the information is there. Then we have register of investment not held in the company's name. Okay, this is also, okay, important, but it is applicable in rare cases, because there are rare cases when the company, when the investment are acquired by the company but not in the company's name, but in the name of the directors or any shareholder. So that is to be maintained as per section 187, and that is to be maintained in MBP3. So you can refer the documents like board or general meeting resolutions, MGT 6, and financial statements and directors reports. Next, we have register of contracts in which directors are interested. This is very, very important. Okay, usually in case of private companies, there are transactions whenever directors wants to direct some. In private companies, directors are shareholders also. They have the majority stakes also. So whenever they want to infuse funding into the company, either through loans or investment, so okay, so these are the transactions in which, and there are some contracts. Suppose directors have some property. Directors have some property. They own some property, land and building, and company needs some land and building for its business. Okay. Now the directors wants to sell this company, sell this land and building to the company. Okay, then we can say that these are the contracts in which directors are interested, or these land and building, plant and machinery, or resources assets are can be owned or operated by the relatives of the director, then also the directors are interested. Okay, so this is to be maintained in MBP 4. Okay, and so this is to be maintained if the directors are interested in the company. Okay, or the directors are interested in other companies, affiliates of the company also. Okay, and you have to mention that in which affiliates the directors are interested and the contracts with the related parties as per section 188. Next is we have, okay, so you can refer to these information, MGT 14, AOC 2, MBP 1 for taking the information. Now we have register of sweat equity shares. This is rarely applicable. This is applicable, I would say, that software based companies, okay, where the value of employees, okay, in the success of the organization is very crucial. So software companies or tech based companies wants to retain their uh, highly skilled and uh, old employees not to join the competitors, so they issue sweat equity shares to their employees to retain them. Okay, so if that occurs, okay, if sweat equity shares are issued to the employees or the managerial person, then as per section 54 with read with rule number 8, we have to maintain a register of, okay, register of sweat equity shares. So that is as per in the form number SH3. Okay, and this is not applicable for all the companies. Okay, so here we have to mention the date of board and as well as special resolution, both the dates in which this sweat equity shares are approved by the directors and as by the members of the company. Name and the status of the allottee to whom these sweat equity shares are given. Details of the sweat equity shares issued. Lock-in period, that is the vesting period to the allottees. And basis of valuation and the name of valuer. And now we are coming to the end of our presentation. Okay, so every company, okay, is required to send its approved financial statements, okay, along with the director's report and auditor report to all the members of the company at least 21 cleared days before the AGM with the notice. Okay, so that's the end of the presentation. Okay, and give me 2 minutes. I want to discuss some, okay, due dates for these compliances. Commencement of certificate of business to be taken within 180 days of incorporation. Form ADT 1 for the auditor is to be filed within 15 days of the AGM. We have to how many hold board meetings? We have to hold 4 board meetings, but as per the schedule, okay, as per the notice given to the directors. we have to conduct AGM, subsequent AGM within 9 months, within first AGM within 9 months of the incorporation, and the subsequent AGM within 6 months of the end of the financial year, and there should be a gap of there should be gap which should not exceed 15 months between two AGM. INC 20A to be filed within 180 days. AOC 4 within 30 days of the AGM. MGT 7A, which is to be filed. Okay, this is the annual return for small companies and OPCs. Okay, for private companies which are not small companies and OPCs, they have to file MGT 7. Okay, so I am done with my presentation. You can see the due dates here. Okay, so these are not much technical. Now I can take your doubts.
हाँ Manu, I'll quickly start with the Q&A box only. Amit Gupta
Okay.
ji is asking, what are the requirements for INC 20A? Please explain ADT 1 filing with example. Sir, ADT 1 filing with example, Tanveer ji explain करेंगे next session में 6 to 7. Manu ji, आप requirements for INC 20A बता दीजिए.
INC 20A.
जो commencement का है. INC.
Yeah, sir. I would say that I can share with you the entire format of that INC 20A. Okay. MCA 21. MCA 21. If you go into the portal of the MCA 21, then you can see. Sir, this is not very technical. Shall I open the INC 20A here? Let me open the form number INC 20A. So, sir, in that you have to mention the SIN number of the company, name of the company, email ID of the company, okay, address of the registered office of the company, and you have to mention, okay, the basic details, okay, and you have to, okay, attach, okay, there are two attachments required, okay, one is mandatory. You have to attach the photograph of the registered office, okay, which should show the outside image of the building as well as inside office also. Okay, and you have to attach at least one photograph of the any director or KMP. Yes, and there are other attachments also which is not prescribed, but you can mention. Okay, there would be 4 to 5 other attachments also. Okay, and you have to attach a declaration. You have to tick the declaration that that a particular director is authorized by the board of directors to file that they have commenced the business. Okay.
Absolutely. Tanveer has also joined. Tanveer, would you like to add anything to this question? If you are there.
Hi, Neha.
Hi, Tanveer.
Yeah, could you please repeat the question?
Yes, INC 20A ka requirements, Amit ji is asking. Manu has mentioned most of the documents that are required. Would you like to add anything?
Okay, so in the case of INC 20A, which is for commencement of business, the basic document which is required to be attached with that particular form is the bank statement. That is the sole purpose. Of course, if there are some situations wherein, I believe, for example, if we are going for strike-off, and if we are proceeding with filing the form for strike-off, which is STK2, if the error occurs that firstly you have to file INC 20A, then we can file the INC 20A and we can mention 0 figures, and with that we can attach I would say clarification with respect to that the company did not start its business and hence no bank account was opened. So it would depend upon situation to situation, but basically if you are running a regular business, in that case only account statement would be required to attach. And yes, of course, apart from that there are two more requirements which have been added recently in the last 1 year and a half, which is the pictures of your office. One is from outside, wherein the board should be clearly visible, in which there are basic requirements which are mentioned under the Companies Act with respect to board, which says that it should contain the name of the company, the SIN, the contact number, email ID, and address, and of course, if there is any website or fax number, then that is also required to be mentioned, and one picture which should be of inside the office. That's it.
Thank you, Tanveer. Moving on. Manu, can we take up the next question? Manu, are you?
We can take it.
Yes. Okay. So Prahlad ji is asking, क्या UTIN for AOC 4, MGT 7, company audit report, income tax audit, फॉर्म 3CA के लिए अलग अलग होता है? प्लीज इसके बारे में बताइए.
मैम ये नेहा मैम, ये जो क्वेश्चन है ये स्टार्टिंग ऑफ द सेशन में आया था, वो सारी चीजें मैं कवर कर चुका हूँ.
आप कवर कर चुके हैं. Moving on. Ajay ji is asking if there are only 2 directors and promoters and directors are same, is it required to serve a 7-day notice to director in such case also?
Yes.
Okay. Rakesh Gupta ji is asking, should we need to file ADT 1 for first auditor within 30 days? What is tenure of appointment of first appointment?
Till the new auditor comes.
Okay. So he's asking for first auditor, do they have to file ADT 1 within 30 days? Tanveer, would you like to take this up? ADT 1 का पूछ रहे हैं time for
It is to be filed within.
Yeah, surely. I'll throw some light on that. So basically, there's a kind of confusion amongst the people that whether ADT 1 is required to be filed or not for first auditors, because in a way, the act is not very clear about that. It is very clear for the auditor appointment in AGM and casual vacancy and all those things, but for first appointment, it is not clearly mentioned over there. But as a good practice, it is said that if the company wants to do a rightful business, and if the auditor also wants to be on a safer side, then they should go with filing the ADT 1 form. And for that, the due date is firstly, we have to conduct a board meeting within 30 days of incorporation, and the day on which the board meeting is conducted, after that, within 15 days, we have to file ADT 1 form. So basically, if we go through end to end, then if the board meeting was conducted on the 30th day of incorporation, then another 15 days would be there for the company to file ADT 1. So basically, 45 days period would be there after incorporation.
Manu, would you like to add something to it?
No, Neha, I would like to take my leave because I have another session with my students.
Okay, thank you, Manu. Thank you so much for joining us today. Tanveer, if you allow me, we can take maybe some questions for 5-7 minutes and start with your deliberation after that. Is that okay?
Yeah, surely.
Okay. So Rakesh ji is asking, Tanveer, are rules of AGM same for OPC as well?
So in case of OPC, there's only one member. So basically, AGM is not a concept for OPCs, but in the case of OPC, what Companies Act says is that we have to file form AOC 4 within 180 days of the financial year ending. So basically, we have to file AOC 4, which is for financial statements, by 27th of September every year. That is the due date. We cannot bypass that. Of course, if we bypass that, then the late fees would be applicable. And as I mentioned, that it is a one-person company. So one-person company clearly means that the shareholder is only one. So in that case, no AGM would be required to be conducted. However, the compliances which are associated with that, for example, if we talk about AOC 4, then of course we need to file AOC 4 within 180 days from the end of a financial year. We have to file MGT 7 or 7A, whichever is applicable. Of course, in OPC, 7A is applicable, 7 is not applicable. So we have to file that within 60 days of end of this AOC 4's due date, which is 27 September. So for just to sum this up, I would say that actual AGM need not to be conducted because, of course, there is only one person, but the compliances which are associated with that with respect to filing the forms, that would be there. And for all the purposes, I would just like to clarify that for all the purposes of form filing, wherein it is asked that what was the date of AGM, because the form is not dynamic, it is neutral for every company in a way. So basically, we have to mention the date on which AGM was conducted, and for that purpose, the day on which the minutes are recorded by the OPC, that day would be considered as the date of AGM. So, which is for which the due date is of course 27 September, and it could be anywhere around 27 September, 25th September, 10th September. The date could be any, but it cannot be after 27th of September. That's it.
Thank you, Tanvir. Amitji, you have asked two questions in the Q&A box about MGT 7A and annual returns. The question is incomplete. It may be in context with something Manuji was talking about. Request you to please write the question again in case your answer has not been made. Praladji is asking, please share valuable PPT and other material by mail. We'll do that, Praladji. We'll do that. We'll do that tomorrow. Preeti ji is asking definition of deposits. If you could just take, if it is of context.
Yeah, of course, it is out of the topic which we are taking right now. But if you allow, then we can of course throw a little light on that, because it's a deep topic. It's a huge topic, and for that we would need a session.
Okay, Preeti ji, in case we have time in the end, then we'll take up this question. Moving on, Ankush ji is asking if there is no change in KYC of directors. In that case, is it mandatory to do KYC of directors?
Yes.
I also know about it.
It is mandatory to be done every year. So basically, there's a concept in KYC forms. There's one web-based KYC form, and one is the normal form which we file in general parlance. So basically, if there are any changes in the details of a director, then we need to file the particular form which we have to certify, and we have to affix the director's DSC, and we have to update the details in that particular form. Another is web-based form. If there are no changes in the details of the director, be it mobile number, email ID, their address, then only web-based form is needed to be submitted, and for that we need only 2 OTPs, one from mobile number and one of email ID. That's it. But yes, compliance is to be done annually, and 30th September is the due date, I would like to say, because if you surpass that date, then you have to file the form with 5,000 rupees late fees. So if you want to avoid that, then please start doing the KYC thing once I would say the festive season ends.
हाँ, क्योंकि ये 5,000 बहुत चुकते हैं और क्लाइंट देता नहीं है. So moving on, Ajay ji is asking, can a company obtain loan from its directors? Can a company grant loan to its directors? उसके बाद और भी पार्ट है इस क्वेश्चन का, but if you could just answer this, then I'll take up the next part.
Yeah, so company can of course take loan from directors in common parlance as well. As auditors, you might have noticed in several cases that the company has taken loan from director. For that matter, I would say, of course, it is allowed. But what happens is, in generally what happens is the directors put in some money in the company, and once we go for the audit, then we have to, somehow formulate a scheme under which head we have to mention that amount which was received by directors. So we generally put that into unsecured loans from directors. So that is allowed, but the company cannot give a loan to director. That is not allowed.
Okay, the next part of the question is SH4 not required for security transfer? Sir, आज हम ये cover ही नहीं कर रहे हैं लेकिन.
ठीक है, but I would still answer that. Yes, SH4 is required in every case of transfer. Transfer हो रहा है तो SH4 आपको भरना ही पड़ेगा.
Also, MGT1 is to be filed over MCA. Like that's the last question.
No, that's a format which we have to maintain. The books have to be maintained electronically or through physical mode, but it is not to be filed with MCA. Okay,
Ankush is asking, loan repaid in 2015 and still CHG4 is not filed. Can we take NOC on current date and file CHG4?
See, it's a subjective matter. I would say that, of course, if you want a specific guidance, then we can talk about it at a later stage once the session ends. And I can, of course, suggest you the means through which we can proceed with that. But of course, we have to see the case firstly, that what exactly is the situation and what was the amount and what was the timeline of the whole case. Only after that, I would be able to comment on that.
I'm putting this question in abeyance. If we have time, we'll cover it up. There are at least 20 more questions. Tanvir, would you like to proceed with questions for another 5 minutes and then we'll...
I think we should start with the session, and if the time allows, we can take those questions at the end.
Okay, done. I'd quickly like to introduce you, Tanvir. Just in the meanwhile, could you please correct the light for your face a little bit?
Just give me
yes, perfect. It got focused. हाँ हो गया, हाँ focus हो गया. Yes. Thank you, Tanvir. Thank you so much. I'd quickly introduce you to our members. So we have CS Tanveer Singh Saluja, who's the founder and convener of Jabalpur Study Circle of ICSI. He holds an impressive array of qualifications, including CS MCom, LLB, and MA in corporate social responsibility. CS Tanveer is a practicing CS, a registered trademark agent, and a tax practitioner based in Jabalpur. In addition to his professional practice, Tanveer is an avid blogger. He has authored over 200 articles on various platforms, including journals published by ICSI. Some of his articles on Tax Guru have garnered over 6 lakh views. That's commendable, Tanveer, reflecting his ability to communicate complex legal concepts in an accessible and engaging manner. Voice of CA welcomes you, Tanveer, for the first time on the channel, and I hope that our members call you again and again. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Neha. I would like to thank Voice of CA Sanjay Agrawal sir, CA Neha Agrawal, and all the people who are associated with this particular, I would say, initiative through which many members of CA community are able to understand more about the practice and I would say explore more avenues and new areas. In that way, it actually creates a coexisting environment for all the professionals. So that's a great initiative, I would say. Thank you for inviting me. I think I should start with the session.
Please proceed. You can share your screen if you want, Tanveer.
Yeah, just give me a second.
Divya ji and some other participants are asking how they can get updated for our upcoming webinars. Please write subscribe and send it to us at voiceofca@gmail.com so that we can keep you in our subscribed members. Thank you, Divya ji. Thank you.
Is the screen visible? Neha, am I audible?
Yes, Tanveer.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Yeah. So basically, today we have gathered here to understand the intricacies of three forms, which are the most important forms in our company, because these forms are those forms which we have to file on a yearly basis. There are various other forms as well, DPD3, MSME1, but those are event-based forms. But these are some forms which we have to cater to every year, and those forms are AOC4, MGT7 or 7A, and ADT1. So basically, I would firstly start with showing how to download these forms firstly. So basically, many of the members might be aware that the MCA is now working in two dimensions. One is V2 portal, one is V3 portal, and that is creating a lot of chaos and hassle between the members. So currently, many of the forms have been transition to V3 portal, but these annual filing forms ADT1, MGT7, and AOC4, it's still in the V3 portal, V2 portal, sorry. And we are, I would say, expecting that it's gonna transition to V3 soon, and that is going to be around the season only. And we have to, of course, go through all the struggles. So yeah, I'll continue with showing how to download it. So this is the MCA site. We all have passed by through this site at least once in a lifetime, I would say. So basically here we have this option for company forms download. You can simply search for AOC4, right? So here there might arise a confusion amongst the professionals that there are a lot of forms available for AOC4 which we have to go for. So basically, in normal case scenarios, you have to go with this form, which is form for filing the financial statements and other documents with the registrar. This is the normal form which we file in general parlance. Apart from that, this is a form which is for consolidated financial statements of NBFCs. This is for XBRL, and this is for consolidated financial statements again, and this is for NBFC standalone financial statements. So basically, these are certain forms which are available, but in general, common parlance, we have to use this particular form, right? Apart from that, here only we can find form MGT7 and MGT7A. I'll come to that later on, that why there are two forms available for filing annual returns, right? And here only you can find form ADT1 as well. So there's a single form which can be downloaded. So basically, the forms which are available on the right hand side, these are just the forms, and on the left hand side, these are forms with the help kit along with it. So we can download this, and as if you are, I would say, filing the forms for the first time, or you are facing any issues, then you can of course use the forms, the zip file which is provided on the left hand side, and understand the whole procedure, how to fill that particular form. So this is how you can download it. And there is one more thing I would like to mention. This is with respect to the due dates, and a lot of confusion is created amongst the minds of professionals, not just chartered accountants, but also in the minds of company secretaries as well, when they start their practice and they are in the newly phase. And that is with respect to the due date. So basically, I would just brief out the due dates which are there for all three forms. For AOC4, we have to file form within 30 days from the end of the AGM. And for MGT7, the due date is 60 days by the end of the AGM. And for ADT1, it is 15 days. Now, the problem here is that the Act has tweaked a little in the wording, and it has created a difference of 1 day in two forms, and that is Form ADT1 and AOC4. So basically, if we look at it as a layman, then we would think that if the AGM was held on 30th September, then the due date for AOC4 is 30th October, and for ADT1 it is 15th October. But that is not the case. I will just show you the uh, section, and after that you can actually have a clear understanding that what is happening in the section, right? So here we can see that I would not read this particular first statement, but I will directly jump to this. Shall be filed with the registrar within 30 days of the date of AGM, right? In such manner, here if you will click, you will get the form within 30 days from the date of AGM, right? Now, if we go through the provisions which are there in Form ADD1 for in section 139, then here it is mentioned within 15 days of the meeting in which the auditor was appointed. Now, if we go through section 92, which is for MGT7, here it is mentioned. Please hear this particular point carefully, because it creates lots of problem when we file the forms. So here it is mentioned within 60 days from the date on which the AGM was held. Now, if you might have noticed that there is I would say trick of words here, because in ADT1 we can see it is written that within 15 days of the AGM. In AOC4 it is written within 30 days of the date of AGM, but in case of MGT7 it is mentioned within 60 days from the date of AGM. So here I would like to clarify that in case of ADT1 and AOC4, the day on which the meeting has been held, it is included in that 30-day or 15-day period. So for AOC4, the due date is going to be 29th October if the AGM was held on 30th September. For AT1, it is going to be 14th October. But in case of MGT7, it is going to be 29th of November, 31 days of October and 29 days of November, which sums up to 60 days. In this particular MGT7 form, we do not have to include the date of AGM, right? So let's proceed with it. There was a point here in which two forms appeared. One is MGT7 and one is MGT7A. So I would like to throw some light on this MGT7 and MGT7A. So basically, earlier only the concept of MGT7 was there, but in 2022, MGT7A was also introduced, and MGT7A is for small companies and one-person companies, right? So no need to, I would say, elaborate it more. OPC is very clear to people that it is a form of organization in which only one shareholder is there. The other one is small company. So I would just brief out the definition which is there in the Act. Small company means a company which is not a public company, and it has a paid up share capital of 4 crores, and it has a turnover of 40 crores. So this is the basic requirement, that it should not cross the limit of 4 CR in case of PUC, paid up capital, and should not cross the limit of 40 CR in case of turnover. Apart from that, it is also provided that certain types of companies cannot be included in the definition of small companies, even if they qualify for these 4 crores and 40 crore limit. And those are companies which share a holding subsidiary relation, Section 8 companies, and companies which are enacted under a special act, or they are governed by a special act. For example, electricity companies, for that a separate act is there. And for example, I would say insurance companies, for insurance a separate act is there which governs these companies. Of course, Companies Act is applicable to those companies as well, but wherever there is a clash between both these acts, then the act under which it has been enacted, or the act which controls that particular type of entity, that would supersede the Companies Act, right? So I think it is very clear the difference between MGT 7A and 7. Any company which is other than OPC or small company that has to file MGT 7 form. Right. I think we should start with going through the form AOC 4. So basically, I will be showing a form which we have already filed last year, and I would be telling how the figures are to be entered in that form and what are the key points which we have to keep in view while filing the forms. Right. Just give me a second. So this is a form for one of our client companies only. Herein, I will just brief out how we have to file the form. So firstly, we have to, of course, download this particular form from the website wherein I have showed you how to download it. We have to extract the zip file and open this form. That's it. So we have to mention the SIN over here, the corporate identity number, and then we have to click on pre-fill. Once we click on pre-fill, the authorized share capital, name, address, email ID of the company, that would be pre-filled automatically, right? Here we have to mention financial year to which financial statements relates. Now, basically, we know that a financial year starts on 1st April of a year and ends on 31st March of the next upcoming year. But in Companies Act, there's a concept of extended financial year. If we go through the definition of financial year in the Companies Act, which is mentioned in, I believe, section 2, subsection 42 of the Companies Act, it says that if of course, they have firstly mentioned this normal definition that it starts on 1st April and ends on 31st March. After that, they have also mentioned that if the company was incorporated on this particular fourth quarter of a financial year, which is January, February, or March, then that company has the option of keeping an elongated financial year, and they can, of course, keep the annual compliances with respect to AGM in that particular financial year, and of course, conduct that AGM in the next year. So in this case, you can see that the financial statements pertain from 24th of March 22 to 31st March 23. So basically, what has been done here is that the company was incorporated on 24th March 22, and of course, we have the option to close this particular period on 31st March 22 only, but only in only 7 or 8 days, it is not possible for a company to do a lot of business. So of course, it is not a financially stable option for the companies to proceed with annual filing or do anything for the purpose of, I would say, complying with the act. So basically, for that, the act has given a certain relaxation to the companies themselves that they can have a maximum 15-month financial year, but it is provided that it should be incorporated either in the month of Jan, Feb, or March, right? So I think this is clear from my side. So basically, in this case, we have this financial year, we have to mention it. Of course, I would just like to mention one thing over here, that for income tax, we have to file on financial year basis only. So for this particular, I would say 6, 7, 8 days period, we had filed the ITR for this particular company. Of course, we did not file AOC 4 and did the AGM. We did that in the upcoming year, which was 23. So we'll see on which date the AGM was conducted in the coming points. So here it is asking the nature of financial statements. So basically, I will show a blank form in which we have 4 options. One is provisional unadopted financial statement. So there might arise a situation when we have a clash with the auditor, when the company might have a clash with the auditor, or there are certain grounds, I would say, which are out of the hands of the company. For example, during COVID, so companies were not able to conduct their AGMs, hence they were not able to finalize the financial statements, and they, of course, had to comply with the provisions. Although the ministry had provided, I would say, handsome months for for extended period, we had a lot of period for that. But of course, there might arise a situation in general sense also, wherein we are not able to finalize the accounts, but we have to file the financial statements, or we have to file AOC for entity 7. Then in that case, we have to select this option, provisional unadopted financial statements. Second is adopted financial statements. This is something which we'll be using on, I would say, in a general sense and in normal cases, right? So every time we have to use this particular point only if we are not falling in this point. And the coming 2 points of our revision. So under section 30, the revision is to be done by the companies of financial statements if any order has been passed by the court or tribunal, and according to its direction, we have to revise the financial statements. Hence, we have to file this form under section 131. This is voluntarily revising the form. So in that case, we have to use this particular point. So I would say that in general sense, mostly 99% times we will be using this particular option only, adopted financial statements. For, I would say, certain 1% times we have to use this, and in very rare cases we have to use these 2 points. I think I'm very clear with this. So, of course, we selected allotted financial statements. Now, whether provisional financial statements filed earlier, no. I showed you an option over here which says that provisional financial statements are filed. So, in our case, it has not been filed. Whether adopted in adjourned AGM. So, there's a concept of getting the AGM adjourned, provided it should not be the first AGM of the company. If the AGM is the first AGM of the company, for that we already have a lot of period to conduct the AGM, which is 31st December of the upcoming year. So, of course, in that case, the government does not give any extended period. But in case of companies which are not able to conduct their AGM on the due date, then of course they can apply for extension in Form GNL1 and they can get an extension for up to 3 months. So basically, if the due date was falling on 30th of September for the next or subsequent financial year, then of course they can file GNL1 1 month before the due date comes and they can take the extension. And of course, we have to mention reasons why the extension is being asked for. So here, moving forward, we have this option of details of directors and managers, manager, secretary, CEO, CFO of the company who have signed the financial statements. So financial statements is to be signed by at least 2 people. And in case of private companies, I would say normally the directors are only 2 or 3, and they belong to the same family or they belong to the same circle, and they have to, of course, sign this form. So if there are more than 2 directors, then we have to mention the people who have signed the form. We have to mention their DIN, and this would be pre-filled if we click on this, and we have to mention the date on which the signing was done. And if there are only 2 directors, then they are, of course, I would say they are bound to sign the form, sign the financial statement. So those 2 directors' names would appear here. And now we have to mention the date of board of directors meeting in which board report was approved. So here we have to mention that day. Then we have to mention the details of directors who have signed the board's report. So basically, I would just like to clarify, the people signing the financial statements and the people signing the director's report, board report, can be different. In case of private companies, of course, there are limited people. So there are 2 people, then they do all the compliances on their own. But of course, if there are more than 2 people, then the people can be different in case of signing of financial statements and signing of board report. Moving forward, we have to mention the date of signing of reports of the financial statement by the auditor. When the auditor signed the financial statements, that is to be mentioned. Now, whether AGM was held. So yes, the AGM was held. We have to mention the due date on which the date on which AGM was held, 31st December 23, as it was the first AGM of this company. So we had conducted the AGM on 31st December only, and the due date was also 31st. So these 2 dates might differ. For example, the date of AGM might be of September, but the due date has to be as per the act. So the due date as per the act was 31st December. We have mentioned that any extension was granted. So if we had applied for an extension, like I mentioned, then we have to mention the details by clicking on the yes radio button, and then we have to mention the SRN number of GNL1 and all those details, right? So here, moving forward, we have to tell whether this company is a subsidiary of any other company. Then if yes, then we have to fill these details. If it is a no, then we have to click on no. Whether the company has a subsidiary. So in this case, in the first case, we had to tell whether this company was a subsidiary of certain company, and the second point, we have to mention whether this company has a subsidiary company. So for that, we have to mention the details. Now we have to mention the number of auditors and the details of auditor. This is very basic. I think I need not to mention what is to be done here. Of course, I would just highlight one point: SRN of Form ADT1. So basically, we will see how ADT1 is filed. ADT1 is for appointment of auditor, and we have to mention the SRN over here. So once we mention the SRN of that particular form, it automatically pre-fills. Once we click here, then details are pre-filled. If it does not get pre-filled, then we can of course mention the details on our own, because we have the freedom to edit those details. Whether Schedule 3 of the Companies Act 2013 is applicable, yes, mostly in every case this would be applicable. Only in those cases in which the company is governed by some special act. In that case, it would not be applicable. For example, electricity board companies, power companies, insurance companies, SBI. So in that case, it would not be applicable. The schedule or the financial statement format which is provided for those specific companies only, that would be, I would say, applicable. Now, type of industry. So basically, there are a few options over here. with respect to the type of industry. In normal cases, it is going to be commercial and industrial. Apart from that, these options are there: banking company, insurance company, power company, non-banking financial companies registered with the RBI, right? So in normal cases, for private companies which we deal not in normal cases on day-to-day basis, commercial and industrial would be applicable. Now, whether consolidated financial statements required or not, no. This is a specific topic which we can cover in a separate webinar. That what consolidated financial statements are. But here I would just say that if the statements are consolidated with its holding company or subsidiary company, then only the answer would be yes. Otherwise, it is going to be no. Whether the company is maintaining books of accounts and other relevant books and papers in electronic form. So if the details, I would say in the previous, I would say the session. I believe the speaker, CACS Manu ji, had given a brief about the books which are to be maintained. So if it is being maintained in electronic form, then we have to mention yes, and we have to give the details of that. Otherwise, in normal case scenario, it is going to be no, and we have to mention that we have to maintain that in an offline manner. Of course, registers are available in the market for these particular, I would say, formalities. So moving forward, we have to fill the balance sheet now. So in this case, the company got incorporated in the year 22 only. So this was its first AGM. So basically, in this case, only the figures in this particular column would be filled up, and in this column we are not going to fill anything, although I can show a form in which details are mentioned. But for I would say for comfort purposes, I am showing this particular company's form because that is going to ease out the understanding. Otherwise, I would have shown this also, and this is for a company in which was incorporated in the year 2007, and in which the previous year data is also there. But just for the convenience purposes, I'm going to show the data in this particular company. So basically, we have to mention the share capital, which is there in the form. Acha, before proceeding further with the figures, I would just like to mention one more thing. As you I would say, as chartered accountants, you all might be aware that nowadays we have to prepare the financial statements in a rounded off form. So the figures are to be rounded off in the financial statements, which are to be signed and attached with this form or for any other purposes. But when we have to enter the figures in form AOC4, at that time we have to mention the absolute figures. So basically, we have to maintain two Excel sheets. One is for rounded off figures, and one is for absolute figures. And you have to keep you have to keep this particular Excel sheet handy in which the absolute figures are there, so that figures can be mentioned accordingly. Until now, the MCA has not taken this move of I would say mentioning rounded off figures in this form itself, but what we can do as professional, we have to understand whatever is going on and we have to accept it. So basically, here we have to mention the share capital, which I would just allow me to map it. So share capital 15 lakh, it is mentioned. Now reserves and surplus we have mentioned. Moving forward, money received against share warrants. The concept of share warrants was there before the Companies Act 2013 came into picture. Now it is not applicable, although it is still a part of the format, hence it is mentioned over here. But in today's scenario, this would not be applicable. Now moving forward, share application money pending allotment. If any application money has been received by the company for allotment of shares and the shares are not allotted yet, so we have to mention that figure. Now moving forward, non-current liabilities, long-term borrowings. The nomenclature, or I would say the title is enough to understand what we have to mention here. The figure with respect to the long-term borrowings, before tax liabilities, other long-term liabilities, long-term provisions. Now we have to move on to current liabilities, which includes short-term borrowings. So short-term borrowings, it could be, of course, unsecured and secured both. The bifurcation of that we will see in the coming page. So here we have to mention the total figure, which is there present in the balance sheet itself. It's here, right? Now we have to mention the trade payables, other current liabilities, if any, short-term provisions, right? We move forward to the assets, non-current assets, fixed assets, tangible assets, under which we have these particular four bifurcations: tangible assets, intangible assets, capital work in progress, intangible assets, under developments. So all these points are used in common balance only. Mostly this particular point is used in a lesser way. Otherwise, these 3 points are something which we will see in a normal case scenario as well. Now, yeah. So we have to mention the tangible assets, although the Schedule 3 has been updated and it is applicable now, and the nomenclatures have been changed in Schedule 3. So we have to prepare the balance sheet accordingly. Here we can see that for non-current assets, the bifurcation has been changed. It is now property, plant, equipment, and intangible assets, and it has some more sub points, right? But AOC4 is yet to be updated. So here we have to mention according to the AOC4's nomenclature only. So intangible assets, sorry, for tangible assets, here is the figure which we have to mention, right? Moving forward, if there are any intangible assets include copyright, patent, trademark. If there are such intangible assets, then those can be figured out over here. Now capital work in progress, well understood. I think I need not to explain the meaning of this. Intangible assets under development. So just to give you an example, if for example you have applied for patent, right, and patent takes a long period to be granted. So for such particular cases, we can mention the details over here. For example, we had filed a patent application and it is yet to be approved by the authorities. Then the detail of the amount of that particular patent valued as on the day 31st March, we can mention over here. Non-current investments, if the company has invested its money in any particular investment fund or anywhere which is of non-current nature, then of course it can be mentioned over here. Deferred tax assets, long-term loans and advances. If the company has given loans and advances to any other body corporate or its subsidiary holding company, so that is allowed, right? So we have to mention the details of that. Moving forward, we have other non-current assets, and now we have current assets, current investments. If any inventory is very clear, we have to mention the figure of inventories. Trade receivables, if any, cash and cash equivalent, short-term loans and advances, other current assets, right? So what we have to do is we just have to take the figures from balance sheet and put it over here, and just like that also we have to put the figures of previous year as well over here, just like in this case, right? Moving forward, now we have to give certain details for majorly unsecured borrowings or loans and advances. So basically here it is asking details of long-term borrowings unsecured, if any. So we have to mention those details, all right? Moving forward, it is asking details of short-term borrowings unsecured. So you can notice over here that only unsecured details are being asked for, right? So if there are any term loans from banks, of course, I don't understand why they have mentioned from banks, because bank doesn't provide any unsecured loan, right? But of course they have mentioned it here, then let it be here only. Mostly the figure is going to fall in this particular point from other parties, or from loans and advances from related parties. It can be mentioned over here, right? For short-term borrowings, yet again the same details are to be required. Now, details of long-term loans and advances. If any loans and advances are given and those are unsecured but considered good, then we have to mention the details over here. And we have to, of course, mention the nature in which it is there. Capital advances, security deposits, loans and advances to other related parties. This point might include the holding company, subsidiary company, associate company of this particular company for which we are seeing this particular AOC for. Moving forward, it asks for details of terms and loans and advances, which is doubtful. Yet again, that same bifurcation is to be given. Now, we have details of trade receivables. So in this case, we have to specifically mention whether the particular amount is pending for 6 months or it is exceeding 6 months. And accordingly, we have to mention the figures over here, and whether it is a secured, considered good, unsecured, considered good, doubtful. So it depends, and of course, it is would be mentioned in the notes itself. We can have a look at that. Yeah. So here we have trade receivables, right? And as we can see, trade receivables outstanding for a period less than 6 months from the date they are, and it is secured, considered good. So we have used this figure to be mentioned over here, right? Moving forward, this is a very important part and a very important sheet. However, most of the times this particular sheet would not be required to be filled up, because in normal companies the details are not available for this particular sheet. However, I will just brief out whatever is there. I will not go in the detail because that would require another 1 hour to discuss this particular 47-point table. So I would just brief out amount of issue allotted for contracts without payment received in cash during reporting period. This is not applicable as of now. This point was applicable before the Companies Act 2013 came into picture. Now it has no relevance. Now this is self-understood. Share application money given during the reporting period. Right, paid up capital held by the foreign company if it is a subsidiary of a foreign company. Right, then we have to mention that how much the capital is being held by the foreign company, and we have to mention the percentage of that as well. Right, paid up share capital held by foreign company or through its subsidiaries. Right, so if there are any subsidiaries, then we have to mention the details of that also, if it is holding any shares in this company. Number of shares bought back, deposits accepted or renewed during the period, deposits matured and claimed, deposits matured and claimed but not paid, and all the points related to deposits, debentures claimed but not paid, interest on deposits accrued and due but not paid, unpaid dividend, investment in subsidiary companies, investment in government companies. These are self-explanatory points, and if any particular figure is available to be mentioned in this sheet, that can be mentioned. Right, amount due to be transferred to IEPF, intercorporate deposits, gross value of transactions as per AS 18, capital subsidies, grants received from government authorities. For example, if it's a startup company and it has received certain grant from the state government or central government, then that particular figure is to be mentioned over here. Right, calls unpaid by directors, calls unpaid by others. This is for earlier the concept was there. Also, it is still there in the Companies Act 2013, but it is not put to use in normal case scenario nowadays. Earlier, we had this particular series of events for allotment of shares. Firstly, we had the stage of application in which certain application money was received by the company from the prospective shareholders. Then there was allotment stage in which certain other amount was called for. Then we had call 1, call 2. So if any call is missed by the director, or if that particular person is not a director, then in case of others, we have to mention that. Forfeited shares reissued. Forfeited shares means if the shares were issued in that particular scenario in which I mentioned that application money was received and allotment money was received, if any particular person defaults in paying any of the calls, then that share can be forfeited by the company. Right, and it can be reissued. So for that, we have this point, forfeited shares reissued. And these are very self-explanatory points. I think I should not go deep into this. And if there is any query which arises in the future, you can contact Neha or me directly. I can provide you a clarification with respect to this. Mostly, you have to fill these points which are in the end, which is one is net worth of the company, paid up share capital plus reserves, number of shareholders to whom shares were allotted on the private placement during the reporting period. This is also a general point, and it is available in normal case scenarios. If there is a secured loan from bank of financial institutions, gross fixed assets, depreciation and amortization, that's it. Right, now it is asking if any share capital raised during the reporting period. So if any share capital was raised through public issue, bonus issue, right issue. In case of private companies, public issue would not be applicable in any case scenario. Right, so if it is I would say raised through bonus issue, right issue, private placement, then we have to mention the details of that. With a company, so this point is for those companies on which the cost audit is applicable. So if that is applicable, we have to mention yes and provide details. Otherwise, we have to mention no and move forward. Right, now here we come to the table of profit and loss account. Now here we have to mention that in domestic sales. So basically, if a company is operating in India, and there is a chance that it might also be dealing in foreign companies as well. So it might be exporting its products, or it might be providing its services in companies which are situated outside as well, or to the people who are based out of India. So we have to provide a clear bifurcation. So firstly, it asks for domestic turnover, so sales of goods manufactured. So if the company is a manufacturing company, then we have to mention the goods, the sales of the goods manufactured. If the company is a trading company, be it a retailer, distributor, or wholesaler, we have to mention the sales of goods traded. And if it is a service provider company, then we have to mention the sales or supply of services, figure of that. Moving forward, this was the domestic turnover. Now here comes the export turnover. If the goods or services or anything was sold outside India, then we have to mention the figure of that as well. In this company, it is not there. Now, other income, there might be a situation in which the company might be earning other income. For example, if the company has a property which is lying vacant, then it can be given on rent to someone else. And of course, it is not the main business of the company, then it is not going to be covered in revenue operations. It is going to be covered in other income, right? Or if the company has made any FD and it is receiving interest from that, so of course, those figures will be entered over here. And moving forward, expenses, cost of material consumed, this would be applicable in case of manufacturing companies, purchase of stock in trade, right? So how much stock was purchased to sell in case of trading companies, right? If change in inventories of finished goods, work in progress, stock in trade, these figures are to mention. If there are any employee benefit expenses, so if you have done anything for the employees and the expenses are associated with that, so which can be seen in the, I would say, the Excel sheet. So here we can see employee benefit expenses, salary and wages. So it got covered over here, right? Now managerial remuneration, if any remuneration is being paid to managers, then that is to be mentioned. Payment to auditors. So basically, every time we are going to find that point in the in this point, which is for other expenses, right? So in other expenses, we will find the audit fees paid towards statutory audit, towards tax audit. So it was to be mentioned over here. And now, if there are any insurance expenses, power and fuel expenses, finance cost for maintaining the bank account, if any charges are being deducted by the bank, right? That is to be mentioned over here. Depreciation and amortization expenses and other expenses. So just to highlight a point over here, we have this particular point of other expenses, right? So basically here we can see that in other expenses, many points are covered, which also includes audit fees. And if this company had gone for insurance, then that point might also have been covered over here only, right? So when we have to mention the other expenses, we have to deduct those points. For example, in this case, uh, the auditor's fees was also covered in this. So total expenses were 4,32,451, but we have deducted 30,000 from this because 30,000 was paid towards paid to the auditors, and it has been mentioned specifically in the form, right? And the balance 4,02,451.83 pesos, that has been mentioned separately, right? So this is a point which has to be kept in mind every time. And moving forward, we have to mention the tax expense, the deferred tax, and all those things. And it will then ask you for the earning per share before extraordinary items and earning per equity share after extraordinary items. So extraordinary items are not going to be there in normal case scenarios. And in both the points, the basic and diluted EPS is going to be the same, right? There is one thing which I would like to mention over here. So there might arise a situation, for example, if we take this company. Just give me a minute. Yeah. So in this case, we had the figures of previous years and current year as well. So there might arise a situation in which we have classified a certain amount under some particular head, and in the coming year, we realized that it was not to be classified in that, or before we might not be knowing the nature of that transaction, and we got to know about it at a later stage. For example, the company had taken a loan from certain entity, and earlier it was not clear that whether it is a loan amount or what kind of liability that is. So for example, if we were not sure whether it was a short term borrowing, trade payable, XYZ, then we had mentioned that in the head of other current liabilities. But at a later stage, before finalizing the accounts for this particular current year, we got to know that that particular amount was a part of the short term borrowings. Then we of course reclassify the heads. So in that case, there might arise a situation or dilemma in the minds of the professionals, that whether we have to mention the figures in this form as per the I would say as per the financial statements which have been prepared in the current year, or we have to maintain certain parity with the form which was filed last year. So the clear cut answer is you have to mention the figures as per the financial statements which have been prepared for the current year. Of course, there's going to be a mismatch in the current year's form with previous year form in certain figures, because we are transferring a certain amount from other current liabilities to short-term borrowings. but we have to make sure that whatever we are attaching with this form, we have to attach financial statements with this form. We have to follow whatever is there in that particular financial statement, right? We cannot say that earlier the form in that form we had mentioned this figure, and it is going to create a mismatch situation when we use certain other figures in this. That is to be avoided. We just have to follow what is there in the financial statements of the current year. I think I'm clear with this. So if there are any earnings in foreign exchange, we have to mention those details. If there are any expenditure in foreign exchange, we have to mention the details of that as well. Now, financial parameters, just like we had in the case of balance sheet, there are 47 points here, only 9 points are there, right? And we have to mention if any proposed dividend is there, EPS has to be mentioned. If any income from foreign currencies, their expenditure in foreign currencies, their revenue subsidies or grants which we have received from government, rent paid. If the property is rented, it is not in the name of the company, then the rent paid is to be mentioned over here. The consumption of stores and spare parts and all those things, right? I think I am clear until here. Now moving forward, we have to mention the details related to principal products or services of the company. So mostly you can see there are two types of companies. First category of company is which is dealing specifically only in one type of goods. For example, in pharmaceuticals only. Like in case of this company, there might be another company which might also be dealing in medicines. Then I would say hospital products which are required. For example, the machinery which is there or any other thing. So there might be a situation wherein the streams of income are manifold. There might be 2 or 3 streams with respect to the type of product which is there, right? So we have to see that through which particular channel we are generating most of the income, and we have to of course mention the details of that income over here. So we have to mention product or service category code NPCS, so that can be easily I would say mapped from this particular file, which is and National Product Classification of Service Sector. You can easily search that NPCS code 2008, and you can open the first file, right? Here, as we know that this particular company is in wholesale trade service, so we will search wholesale, right? So we got here wholesale. Now it is asking for 4-digit code. We can take this code 9961 when we will mention it here. Yeah, so when we mention it here, it will automatically reflect this wholesale trade services. We have to mention the turnover of the product or service category. So in this case, only pharmaceutical products are being traded in. So we'll mention the total figure of the goods sold over here. We have to mention the highest turnover contributing product or service code. Now here we had mentioned 4-digit code. Here we have to mention 8-digit code. And from this list, we can of course identify which specific code is applicable to our company, and we can mention that code over here. The 8-digit code would be given here in this particular third column itself. So that we have to mention and proceed further. Now moving forward, we have segment 3, reporting of corporate social responsibility. So CSR is applicable to certain companies as per section 135. If I say, then CSR is applicable to the companies which have net worth of rupees 500 crores or more, or if it has turnover of rupees 1000 crore or more, or if it has a net profit of rupees 5 crores or more. In that case, CSR would be applicable to that specific company. If CSR is applicable, we have to choose this option of yes, and we have to provide the details of which pertains to the CSR spending which has been done by the company. Otherwise, you have to select no. The details are very basic. We have to mention whether CSR is applicable or not, yes or no. If we choose yes, we have to mention the turnover and net worth. Now here, turnover and net worth of current year is not required to be mentioned. We have to mention the turnover and net worth of the preceding year, because the limits which I mentioned just now with respect to net profit, turnover, net worth, it has to be checked for the preceding financial year, right? So that would be mentioned over here. Now average of net profit we have to mention over here. Prescribed CSI expenditure, how much we had spent during the financial year, how much amount was spent in local area, all these things. These are basic details which have to be mentioned, right? If the CSR was not spent by the company directly, and it was given to an implementing agency, then we have to give details of that implementing agency as well. Now, disclosure with respect to related party transactions. If any transactions are there with related parties, then we have to mention the details of that. The related party transaction might be on arm's length basis or might not be on arm's length basis. I think that is a common term and it is understood by everyone. Arm's length means if I would have dealt with some other third party, then if I would have sold a product to that particular party for 100 rupees, then I have sold that particular product to my related party at 100 rupees only. I have not undercharged him or overcharged him, right? So if there are such transactions, then we have to mention it over here. We have to mention the number of transactions and give the brief details, right? Or if it is not on arm's length basis, then it is mentioned over here. And if it is on arm's length basis, then we have to mention the details over here. Now, moving forward, whether CAG audit is applicable, no, it is applicable only to government companies, PSUs. So in this case, it is not applicable. Whether CARO is applicable, so we have to tell yes or no, right? If it is applicable, then we have to mention point wise that whether it is I would say what the remarks are and what not, and it can be taken from the audit report itself. Now, if whether it is a favorable remark, not favorable remark, that is to be mentioned over here, right? Whether auditor's report has been qualified or has any reservations or contains adverse remarks, yes or no. Mostly, it's going to be no because in private companies we actually see that of course there are a lot of compliance misouts, but we cannot put them into a complex situation. Hence, we do not give any remarks to them, right? But if there are any adverse remarks, then we have to mention yes and give the details of those remarks. Whether secretarial audit is applicable, so here I would say I would just brief out the points. I would just brief out the types of companies on which secretarial audit is applicable, right? So secretarial audit is applicable under section 204 of the Companies Act, and as per that, if a company is a listed company, if a company is a public company having a paid up capital of rupees 50 crores or more, if it is a public company having a turnover of rupees 200 crores or more, or if it is any normal company, be it a private company or Section 8 company, XYZ, any type of company, and it has outstanding loans from banks and public financial institutions of rupees 100 crores or more as on 31st March, then secretarial audit is applicable. Now, here the point which is to be noted is that the Act has specifically mentioned public company, right? So through public company, what is to be construed? I would just brief out that. So public company means any public company. It can be a listed company. It can be an unlisted company. So mostly if we see certain PSUs are unlisted, right? So in those cases, the audit is applicable if they are qualifying the limits, right? Otherwise, if I start a company which is not a private company, it is an unlisted public company, then in that case also we have to uh, get the audit done, right? So again, last point, whether detailed disclosures with respect to director's report are attached or not. So it's asking whether director report is attached with this form or not. Then the answer is yes, we have attached it. Now moving forward, what all attachments are required in general? Then first is copy of financial statements duly authenticated as per section 139, including board's report, auditor's report, and other documents. In this point, we have to actually firstly merge certain documents, which includes the audit report, the financial statements, the board report, the notice, right? These forms are to be merged together and have to be attached in this particular first point, right? If CSR is applicable, then policy of CSR, details of other entities. If it has certain subsidiaries or associates, then we have to mention secretarial audit report. As I mentioned, in cases where secretarial audit is applicable, we have to attach that as well. Director's report, normally, which we prepare for companies, it is to be attached over here. Details of remaining CSR activities and optional attachments. In optional attachment, you can attach notice of AGM, or if the company had conducted the AGM on shorter notice, then the shorter notice consent forms are to be attached over here. So here comes the end of Form AOC 4. Herein, we have to mention the resolution number through which the power is being given to the director to sign the form, the date in which the resolution was passed, the name of the director, and then the DSC of the director. Now, in this case, certificate of practicing professional is not required because it is a small company. But in case of non-small companies, practicing professionals DSC certification would be required, and in AOC 4, CA, CS, or CMA, all three are authorized to sign the form, right? So I think this is done for AOC 4, and we shall now proceed with MGT 7. Yeah, there's one more thing I would like to mention. In general cases, this particular AOC form would be required to be filed, but in certain cases, we have to file form AOC for XBRL. We have to get the XBRL filing done. I would just read out the scenarios in which XBRL would be required, and of course, we are not going to dive deep into it because it is a very specific topic, and I think we can arrange for its session in a future date as well. So XBRL is applicable to listed companies and its subsidiaries. So if a listed company has certain subsidiaries which are not even listed, which are private also, then in that case also they have to file XBRL forms. Companies which have paid up share capital of rupees 5 crores or more, companies having turnover of rupees 100 crores or more, companies on which companies Indian Accounting Standard 2015 is applicable. So these are the four types of companies on which XBRL reporting is applicable. Now, as I mentioned, there are two types of MGT7s. One is normal MGT7 and one is MGT7A. So MGT7A is a mini version of MGT7. So we will go through the bigger version MGT7 so that proper understanding can be created. And I think time is running, so I will go through it in a faster manner. Mm, Just give me a second. There's a technical issue. So yeah, this is the annual return form MGT7. I will just brief out every point, and there's not much to understand in this because most of the points are self-explanatory. I will just focus on the points in which specific, I would say, focus is required. So yeah, firstly we have to mention the SIN number pre-fill, then it would automatically capture name of the company, address of the company, email ID, right, and the date of incorporation. PAN we have to mention on our own. Telephone number we have to mention on our own. This particular point 4 also gets pre-filled. Now it is asking whether the company is having a share capital. Yes. Whether the shares are listed on recognized stock exchange. No. It is a normal private company. A financial year. So this is a company which is a subsidiary of a foreign company. So they follow this particular financial year of January to December. So here it is for the financial year 22. Now we have to mention the financial year from which this particular MGT 14 annual return, MGT 7 this annual return relates to. And now whether AGM was held, yes, the date of AGM, the due date of AGM 30th June. So basically, in this case, the due date was 30th June. However, it had applied for extension through Form GNL1, and the extension was granted to the company, and hence the date the AGM was held on this date. Now we have to give the SRN number of Form GNL1 through which the extension was taken, the extended due date of AGM. Right now, number of business activities. So in this case, only one is there. There might be a situation wherein more number of activities might be there. So basically, I would just brief out how we can get this exact activity which we have to mention over here, because we have to select the main activity group code and then we have to select the business activity code. So for this, what we can do is we can directly come to the Google Chrome and we can search for business activity code. So here it is. Here we can check for our company whichever applicable activity code is there. We can mention that in this form, right? Moving forward, it is asking for holding subsidiary and associate companies details. So in this case, there is a subsidiary company, there is also a holding company, and there is an associate company. So we have mentioned details of all those companies. This LinkSmart, the subsidiary company is incorporated in India only, hence the SIN is available. However, in these cases, for the holding company and associate company, these companies are not registered in India, and SIN is not there, and it is not required to be mentioned for these cases, right? Moving forward, share capital, we have to uh, mention the number of classes of equity shares. So there is only one class. We have mentioned the number of equity shares, the issued capital, the subscribed capital, and the paid up capital. And we have to mention the nominal value per share, which is, of course, face value is always 10. Most of the cases it is 10. We have to mention that, and it would automatically calculate this figure. Now, if there are preference shares, we have to mention that. We have to mention number of classes of preference shares, right? If there are any unclassified share capital, then we have to mention the details of that as well. Moving forward, breakup of paid up share capital is being asked. So we have to mention the share capital which was there at the beginning of the year, number of shares, right? And we have to mention whether it is in physical form or demat form. And in this case, it was in physical form last year. So now they have converted to demat. And when we'll be filing the MGT 7 for this company this year, then we'll be mentioning those details in demat. So here it was 12,000 at the beginning of the year. The total nominal amount was 1,20,000. Total paid up was 1,20,000, and that's it. So if there is any increase during the year, if there was any right issue, bonus issue, private placement, then we have to mention the details of that here. If there was any decrease, buyback of shares, share forfeited, reduction of share capital, any activity as such was there, then we have to mention the details of that as well. Same goes for preference shares. Same details would be required. Now, if the company has its shares in demat form, then we have to give the ISIN number of the company, which is to be mentioned over here, and all the details of those would be required to be mentioned. Details of stock split or consolidated during the year. In normal case scenario, there is not going to be applicable. But if there is any split of the shares or there is any consolidation, then we have to mention the details of that as well. Going forward, it is asking for transfers, if any shares were transferred or any debentures were transferred. So here there was a transfer. We have mentioned its detail. Here in this particular form, we have the option of mentioning details of maximum 10 transfers. If the transfer exceeds from the limit of 10, then we have to attach a separate sheet with the form, right? So we have to mention the date of previous AGM, date of registration of transfer, the type of transfer, equity shares, right? Number of shares transferred, amount per share, the name of transferor, ledger folio of transferor, ledger folio of transferee, name of transferee. And these are the basic details which are to be mentioned, right? So if there are any debentures outstanding as on the end of financial year, then the details of that particular debentures we have to mention. Securities other than shares and debentures. If any other unclassified shares or securities are there, then the details of that as well is mentioned over here. The turnover and net worth, we have to mention the turnover and net worth of the company for the current year, right? In case of CSR, we had to mention the figures of previous year because it is calculated based on the preceding year only. However, in case of this MGT 7, here we have to mention the current year details with respect to turnover and net worth of the company. One thing is to be noted over here, never include the other income part in turnover. Only the part with respect to revenue from operation is to be mentioned over here. The other income would not be included in this particular figure. Now shareholding pattern. So in this case, the body corporates are the shareholders mostly. So body corporate, one body corporate is holding 9,000 shares, which is 75% of the shareholding right now. If the shares were being held by individuals, then we had to mention the details over here in the case of Indian NRI and all those things, right? If it is a government company, then we have to mention the shareholding of the government company, central government, state government, other government companies, PSUs. So total number of shareholders, promoters in promoter category is only one. This is for promoters. Now we have to mention the details of public or other than promoters. So in case of other than promoters, there is one more shareholder which holds 25% of shares. It is also a body corporate. The total number of shareholders other than promoters is one, and promoters plus other than promoters is two, right? Here it is asking the number of promoters, members, and debenture holders begin at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. So in the beginning, this particular company had two promoter shareholders and by the end, as I showed in the previous page, the transfer was there. So it was transferred and it was given to some other member. Hence, at the end of the year, only one promoter was left with shareholding, and other than members also, there was other than promoters also there were two shareholders, and amongst which only one is left now. So basically, previously there were four shareholders, two promoters and two non-promoters, but by the end of the year, only two people were left. One was in promoter category and one in other than promoter category. The details of directors and KMP, we have to mention the details of directors who is of executive category, who is of non-independent category, non-promoter category. These are basic details which are required to be mentioned. The number of directors in KMP as on the end of the financial year. So there might be a situation that initially there were five directors in the company when the financial year started, but by the end of the year, two directors were had resigned. So basically, at the end, only three were left. So we have mentioned three, and now we have to mention the details of those directors as well. And here we also have to mention particulars of change in directors and KMP personnel during the year. So if there were any appointments or resignations, as I mentioned, if there any was a director who resigned or there was a session of any nature, there might be a situation that the director retired or the director passed away. So we have to mention those details here as well. Now here it is asking for the members meetings details. So it is asking how many meetings were held during the financial year. So there might be a situation that meetings might be 4 or 5. There's going to be only one AGM, but apart from that, there might be EGMs for other transactions. So in this case, only AGM was there. We have mentioned the details of that AGM, right? Now, for board meetings, we have to mention how many board meetings were conducted during the year. Right, 4 board meetings were there. We have mentioned the dates of the board meeting. These all details can be fetched from the director's report. Now, total number of directors who were associated with that company during that particular period when the board meetings were held, those were these. The number of directors who attended in the first 3 meetings, all 3 directors attended the meeting, but in the last meeting only 2 directors attended the meeting. So only 66.67% directors had attended the meeting. So this is how we have to mention the attendance of directors. Now, committee meetings, if any committees are formed, CSR committee, other audit committee, remuneration committee, then details of that would be required over here. Attendance of directors. So here we have to mention the directors' names and how many meetings they were entitled to attend the board meeting and how many meetings they actually attended, right? And also it also asks whether the director had attended the AGM which was held in this particular current year. Then we have to mention yes or no. So this particular director, Neil Stewart, he actually resides outside India, so he did not attend the AGM, and hence the option is no. And other 2 directors attended the AGM, hence it is yes. Then remuneration to directors and KMP. One point is for managing directors, all-time directors, manager whose remuneration are to be entered, right? Here, if any MD, WTD or manager to whom the payment was made for remuneration, it can be mentioned over here. Then if any remuneration is paid to CEO, CFO and company secretary, then it is to mention over here. Then if any remuneration is paid to any person other than the above, then details of that director is to be mentioned over here. The name, designation, gross salary, right? Now, whether the company has made compliance and disclosures in respect of applicable provisions, yes. If the company has not complied with the provisions, then of course we can say no and give the reasons for that. If any penalties were imposed, if any compounding of offenses were done, then we have to mention the details of that as well. Now, it is asking whether complete list of details of shareholders and debenture holders are attached. Yes, we have attached the list. We have to mention that. Now, here comes an interesting point wherein the role of chartered accountant gets limited, which is form MGT 8, right? So in certain cases, companies are required to get the annual certification done from company secretaries, for which the limit is given. In case of listed companies, this is required in case of companies having paid a share capital of 10 CR or more and turnover of 50 crores or more. Right. In such a case, company secretary is required to provide a certificate in form MGT8 with respect to certain compliances, which we have attached with this also. I can show that. So this is the signed MGT8, in which certain points are to be covered, but this is a part to be played by company secretaries only. So you can of course reach out to your CS friends for this particular MGT8 if it is applicable to any of your client companies, right? We have to mention the details of the CS who had done the MGT 8 certification, right? Moving forward, we here get the option to mention the name of the director who is signing the form, and also in this case, one more thing is there. In case of AOC 4, we had noticed that CA, CS, CMA, all three were authorized to sign the form. But in case of MGT 7, only company secretaries are authorized to sign the form. Apart from CS, no one else can sign this form. So of course, for this also you have to reach out to your CS friends, right? So here the attachments are list of shareholders and debentures, approval letter for extension of AGM. In this case, the AGM was extended, copy of MGT 8 that we have attached, and if there are any other attachments, for example, transfers were more than 10 and we have attached any list for that, that can be attached over here. Now this is it for MGT 8, sorry, MGT 7. Last form is left, which is ADT 1. So the requirement of filing ADT 1 arises in many situations, but here we are going to talk about only the situation in which the appointment is being done in the AGM. All right. So in the AGM, we have to keep in mind that the appointment can never be less than 5 years. If the appointment is being made in the first for the first year, then the appointment is to be of 1 year only. If it is for casual vacancy, then it has to be of for one financial year only. But in case of appointment in AGM, it is always for a period of 5 years. It can never be less than that, right? So we have to uh, mention the nature of appointment, and that is appointment, reappointment, and AGM, right? Whether joint auditors have been appointed, no. Number of auditors, 1. Then we have mentioned the details of the auditor, period of accounts for which appointed. So for 5-year period, we have to appoint them. So first from 1st April 23 to 31st March 28, the appointment was there, and we have mentioned the number of years for which appointment relates to, right? Whether the auditor of appointment of auditor is within the limit of 20 companies, yes. Now here we have to mention if that particular auditor who is being appointed in the company in the AGM, whether that auditor has been associated with this company in previous years also. So in this case, the auditor, this particular person was the first auditor of the company also. So we have mentioned this, that this particular person was auditor for this particular financial year as well, for 22-23, right? Now moving forward, we have to mention whether the appointment has been made in AGM. Yes, we will mention the date of AGM, date of appointment, whether appointment is auditor is appointed due to casual vacancy of the officer auditor. No. If yes, then we have to mention the SRN of 83, right? That's it. Now we will just go through the attachments. In this, only directors DSC is required. In no case professionals DSC or certification would be required, right? So this is the appointment letter which is sent to the auditor. This is the auditor consent letter which is given by the auditor to the company, which is a consent, right? And this is the resolution of the AGM in which the auditor appointment was done. So yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, you can leave that in the chat box, and Neha, you can take up those questions and I will be able to answer that.
Yes, thanks Tanvir, thank you. I'll quickly take up a few questions. हम लोग already 15 minutes late हो गए. So yes. So Sunil ji was asking, in case of private limited company, if MD has been appointed as MD since inception, and also mentioned in AOA whether renewal of reappointment of MD after 5 years is still required or not.
Yes, it would be required.
Kalpana ji is asking, sir, please share PDF file. We will do that. We'll do that. आप शायद मनु जी की PDF फाइल मांग रहे हैं, मैम मिल जाएंगी. Manoj Ram ji is asking, is ADT 1 required to file for appointment of first auditor by board? We have already covered this, right?
Yeah.
Please explain. Preeti ji is asking, please explain who are required to file DPT 3.
That's again a specific topic. Should we take it?
Let's move on to the next question. Abeyance में रखते हैं, then we'll take it up क्योंकि आज DPT 3 हम नहीं cover कर रहे हैं. Ankush ji is asking, auditor resigned on 22/7/24 for FY 23-24 and new auditor appointed on 5th August 24. For new auditor appointment, within how many days we can file ADT 1 and what are documents that need to be attached in ADT1. ये भी हम cover कर चुके हैं, correct?
Yes.
खाली नंबर ऑफ डेज आप बता दो ADT1 के लिए तनवीर, दोबारा से इनको।
ADT1 तो जिस भी मीटिंग में अपॉइंटमेंट हो रहा है ऑडिटर का, चाहे वो AGM हो, EGM हो, बोर्ड मीटिंग हो, उसके विद इन 15 डेज आपको फाइल करना है।
Okay. Amit ji is asking, is there any specific document to be attached with INC 20A? ये भी cover कर लिया हमने, right?
हो गया था।
Okay. Then moving on, Divya ji is asking, CA for CHG4 DSC of directors, CA and bank manager is required. Correct.
Right.
Additional question to this is, does all director DSC is mandatory?
All directors DSC, no, only one is required.
Moving on, Ankush ji is asking, after conclusion of AGM for 23-24, we need to file form ADT1 again?
It depends whether that particular auditor's appointment is getting ended in that particular year or not. अगर 5 साल का टेन्योर पूरा हो गया तो आपको रीअपॉइंट तो करना पड़ेगा उसको। वो तो अब सब्जेक्टिव है कंपनी में आपका कैसा चल रहा है। अगर मान के चले, अपन एक एग्जांपल में लेता हूँ कि मान लीजिए फर्स्ट ऑडिटर अपॉइंट हुआ था बस, तो उसके बाद यस, इफ दिस इज द फर्स्ट टाइम दी एजीएम इज गोइंग टू बी कंडक्टेड, देन अभी तो आपको अपॉइंट करना पड़ेगा। बट अगर कंपनी पुरानी है, पहले भी अपॉइंटमेंट हो चुका है, तो वो तो स्पेसिफिकली देखना पड़ेगा कि ऑडिटर का जो टेन्योर है वो अभी कंप्लीट हो रहा है कि नहीं।
Moving on, Amit ji is asking, can we file INC 20A without bank statements?
See, it can be filed, but it is not suggested. In certain cases, we have to, of course, find out some ways to secure the company. But आप उसको certify करने वाले हो, आपका DSC लगने वाला है, then I would say कि फाइल मतलब अटैच कर सकते हो तो it's good, नहीं कर सकते तो that's also fine.
Okay. Amit ji is also asking, if there are 2 directors and one director is in India and the other is out of India, then can AGM be conducted through audio visual, मतलब virtually हो सकती है क्या?
बिल्कुल।
Ashok ji is asking, please explain due date of various forms in case of LLP. Sorry Ashok ji, LLP हम cover नहीं कर रहे हैं आज, दोबारा कर देंगे LLP का। Hemant ji is asking, if company incorporated on 20th December 23, bank account opened on 19 June 23, 19 June 23, incorporation से पहले 24 कहना चाह रहे होंगे आई थिंक। When is the last date for INC 20A?
सी इनकॉर्पोरेशन के विद इन 180 डेज आपको फाइल करना रहता है। तो आपने बैंक कब खोला कब नहीं खोला, दैट इज नॉट अ पॉइंट ऑफ कंसर्न। अपने को ये देखना कि इनकॉर्पोरेट कब हो रहा है, उसके विद इन 180 डेज वी हैव टू फाइल द फॉर्म।
आप इनको ये बता दो कि अगर लेट फाइल कर रहे हैं तो क्या कॉन्सिक्वेंस है?
लेट फाइल करते हैं तो देखिए, पहली बात तो अब आप पीनल एक्शंस के लिए तो लायबल हो जाते हैं। अब वो मिनिस्ट्री लेती है नहीं लेती वो बात की बात है, अदरवाइज आपको लेट फीस लगा के आपको भरना तो पड़ेगा फॉर्म। अगर आपने INC 20 नहीं सबमिट किया है तो आप दूसरे फॉर्म्स नहीं सबमिट कर पाओगे, AOC 4, MGT 7, ये सब आप कुछ नहीं कर पाओगे।
राकेश जी पूछ रहे हैं, कैन कंपनी गिव लोन टू डायरेक्टर? हम ऑलरेडी कवर कर चुके हैं सर, ये कंपनी नहीं दे सकती लोन डायरेक्टर को। Radhika ji is asking, if ADT1 is not filed in first year and when we filed AOC4 for first year and form will ask for SRN of ADT1, then what we should do?
So in that case there's a trick, आप F लिख के F तो करके आप 99999 डाल सकते हो, तो वो उसको ओके कर लेगा, मतलब एक्सेप्ट कर लेगा।
Moving on, Rakesh ji is asking, is it necessary to give physical share certificate to shareholders at time of incorporation commencement? If yes, what is the procedure?
कि अगर आपके शेयर्स फिजिकल मोड में हैं तो आपको फिजिकल शेयर सर्टिफिकेट देना ही पड़ेगा, एंड इट इज टू बी इशूड विद इन 60 डेज ऑफ इनकॉर्पोरेशन।
आप इनको प्रैक्टिकल एस्पेक्ट बता दो कि अगर नहीं करते हैं इशू तो क्या होता है?
नहीं करते हैं इशू तो इन अ वे देखिए, शेयर सर्टिफिकेट जो होता है इट एक्ट्स एज प्रूफ फॉर द शेयर होल्डर कि वो उसके शेयर्स उसमें हैं। आपने नहीं दिया तो उसको तो पता ही नहीं है कि उसकी मतलब होल्डिंग क्या है क्या नहीं है। मतलब मैं एक नॉर्मल के सिनेरियो की बात कर रहा हूँ। प्लस अगर वो कभी शेयर्स को ट्रांसफर करना चाहेगा आगे किसी और पर्सन को, तो जब तक उसके हाथ में शेयर सर्टिफिकेट नहीं होगा वो ट्रांसफर नहीं कर पाएगा।
Moving on, Arunji is asking, if we have adverse opinion in audit report and CARO is applicable in case of small company, where to mention in AOC 4?
सो अभी मैंने दिखाया था AOC 4 में लास्ट में पूछते हैं कि वेदर कारो इज एप्लीकेबल और नॉट। जब हम उसमें येस चूज करते हैं तो फिर जो भी पर्टिकुलर पॉइंट पे आपका एडवर्स रिमार्क है, इन्वेंट्रीज को लेके, फाइनेंसेस को लेके, वहां पे आपको ऑप्शन मिलता है डालने के लिए, आप वहां पे चूज कर सकते हो एडवर्स रिमार्क।
Okay. Ankush is asking, please share latest financial format as per Schedule 3 for FY 23-24. Sir, I will try to get it from my team for you. That is not something that Tanveer ji can share. Arun ji is asking, query regarding strike off of form. Sir, abeyance में करती हूँ, next में करूंगी ये. अगर ये discuss कर पाए तो बाद में करते हैं. Sunil ji is asking, in case of private limited. Sir, ये कर दिया हमने answer आपके लिए. लोन फ्रॉम डायरेक्शन शुड मेंशन हियर, लोन फ्रॉम डायरेक्टर शुड मेंशन हियर, वो पूछ रहे हैं. प्रीति जी पूछ रहे हैं क्या लोन फ्रॉम डायरेक्टर कहाँ मेंशन करना चाहिए. शायद आप एओसी 4 पढ़ा रहे थे तब वो ये पूछ रहे
एओसी
थे.
4 में जब मैं दिखा रहा था ना, तो उसमें आपको एक ऑप्शन मिलता है शॉर्ट टर्म बोरिंग्स का। तो शॉर्ट टर्म बोरिंग्स है या लॉन्ग टर्म में जो भी है, तो उसमें ही जाता है टोटल फिगर वो, लेकिन हमेशा अनसिक्योर्ड रहेगा। डायरेक्टर से लोन कभी सिक्योर्ड नहीं होगा, इट इज ऑलवेज गोइंग टू बी अनसिक्योर्ड।
Okay. Rakesh ji is asking, is board report and director report for attachment in AOC is same, AAC 4 is same? Board report, director report.
हम दोनों एक ही चीज है।
Okay. In AOC 4 and MGT 7, declaration at last, what should be the date and resolution number?
देखिए, जब आप एजीएम कंडक्ट करते हैं उसके पहले एक बोर्ड मीटिंग करनी पड़ती है, जिसमें आप किसी डायरेक्टर को ऑथराइज करते हैं एजीएम कंडक्ट करवाने के लिए। ठीक है, और उसी पर्टिकुलर बोर्ड मीटिंग में आप दो काम और करते हैं। एक होता है आप बोर्ड रिपोर्ट अप्रूव करते हैं, और एक होता है कि आप फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट जो ऑडिटर ने आपको प्रेजेंट की उसको आप अप्रूव करते हैं। तो वो जिस पॉइंट में आपने अप्रूव किया है फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स को, उसी में हम लास्ट में एक रेजोल्यूशन में मेंशन करते हैं पैराग्राफ कि this particular person or all directors will be authorized to file the forms which are required to be filed for this particular financial statements। तो वो particular date of board meeting और वो particular resolution number वो mention होता है declaration में।
Okay. Moving on, Arun ji is asking whether shares can be transferred to other directors in cash by existing directors.
देखिए, ये मतलब ये उन पर्टिकुलर दो एंटिटीज का लुकआउट है, मतलब वो डायरेक्टर्स का, उसमें कंपनी का लेना देना कुछ नहीं है। अगर वो कर रहे हैं कैश में तो वो उनका है, वो कर भी सकते नहीं भी कर सकते, इट डिपेंड्स अपॉन देयर विल। कंपनी का उसमें कोई रोल नहीं है। कंपनी का बस इतना रोल है कि जब आप कंपनी को ट्रांसफर फॉर्म और शेयर सर्टिफिकेट भेजोगे रजिस्टर करने के लिए, वो उसको रजिस्टर कर देगी, दैट्स इट। दे आर नॉट गोइंग टू आस्क कि आपने कितना पैसा लिया, कितना दिया। ऑल्दो इट इज सजेस्टेड कि वो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक ट्रांसफर मतलब बैंक ट्रांसफर होना चाहिए, नहीं कर रहे हैं तो बट उनका ही लुकआउट है फिर डायरेक्टर्स का।
मूविंग ऑन, प्रीति जी आपसे अटैचमेंट का फॉर्मेट मांग रहे हैं तनवीर।
किसके अटैचमेंट का?
प्रीति जी काइंडली मेंशन इफ यू आर स्टिल विद अस, आप कौन सी अटैचमेंट का फॉर्मेट मांग रहे हैं। प्रीति जी इज आल्सो सेइंग वेदर लोन फ्रॉम डायरेक्टर शुड मेंशन इन AOC 4 इन रिलेटेड पार्टी ट्रांजैक्शन। रिलेटेड पार्टी ट्रांजैक्शन वाले में भी देना चाहिए क्या?
तो बिल्कुल देना चाहिए।
Moving on, Rakesh ji is asking what is certified true copy and extract of resolution, where to use which CTC or extract/abstract.
एक्चुअली दोनों एक ही चीज है। मतलब मैं आपको बताता हूँ, जैसे अगर हमने कोई मीटिंग कंडक्ट करवाई, उसके मिनट्स बनते हैं। अब उस मिनट में से हमने कोई रेजोल्यूशन को निकाल के अलग से बनाया तो वो बन गया एक्सट्रैक्ट। अब उसमें अगर अपन ने नीचे साइन लगा दिया, डायरेक्टर का साइन कर दिया, सील लगा दिए, तो वो बन जाती सर्टिफाइड ट्रू कॉपी। दैट्स इट।
Chirag ji is asking what if auditor has changed, what is form and due date?
व्हाट इफ ऑडिटर हैज चेंज्ड?
हाँ,
मुझे क्वेश्चन
change
थोड़ा सा
हुआ.
मेरे को समझ नहीं आया।
Chirag ji request you to please rephrase your query in the Q&A box. Sunil ji is asking if reappointment of FD not done after 5 years, what is still term? Sir, ये कर दिया हमने आंसर. In case of casual vacancy, new auditor would appoint through EGM.
यस, देखिए, पहले तो हमको विद इन 30 डेज बोर्ड मीटिंग करनी पड़ेगी, जिसमें बोर्ड जो है वो रिकमेंड करेगा मेंबर्स को कि हमें इस पर्टिकुलर ऑडिटर को अपॉइंट करना है। एंड विद इन 60 डेज ऑफ दैट बोर्ड मीटिंग वी हैव टू कंडक्ट एन ईजीएम, जिसमें वो पर्टिकुलर पर्सन का अपॉइंटमेंट हो जाता है इन कैजुअल वैकेंसी। और कैजुअल वैकेंसी में जस्ट एक पॉइंट मेरे को लगता है सबको पता ही होगा, बट मैं ऐड कर देता हूँ कि कैजुअल वैकेंसी जो होती है वो अप टिल नेक्स्ट एजीएम ही होती है बस, है ना। उसके बाद आपको उसको रेगुलराइज करना पड़ता है 5 साल के लिए फॉर्म फाइल करके।
इसमें टाइम लिमिट भी आपने कवर कर दिया है अंकुश सर, टाइम लिमिट कवर कर दिया है हमने। राकेश सर इज आस्किंग फिजिकल सर्टिफिकेट कैसे इशू करते हैं, स्टैम्प ड्यूटी कैसे। सर दिस इज अ वेरी लेंथी क्वेश्चन, Tanveer can give his phone number to you, you can get in touch with him directly about it. Moving on, Chirag ji is asking, in case of change in auditor, which form needs to be filed and what will be the due date?
ADT1.
ADT 1 ही फाइल होगा सर। इसमें आपके पास सब्सिक्वेंट क्वेश्चन है तो पूछिए प्लीज। सर एक क्वेश्चन चैट बॉक्स में भी आ रखा है, उसके बाद हम अबियंस वाला क्वेश्चन ले लेंगे अगर ले पाएंगे तो। सर वो पूछ रहे हैं क्या ऑल रजिस्टर्स मैंडेटरी हैं स्मॉल कंपनी के लिए भी?
हाँ,
ओके।
इसमें सब
अब सर अबियंस वाला क्वेश्चन ले लेते हैं। अरुण जी ने पूछा, query regarding strike of form MGT 14 filed in 30th Jan 24, STK 2 filed on 6th February 24, cancelled by MCA due to resubmission not done timely on 24th February 24. Can we file STK 2 today with any penalty with same SRN of MGT 14 of January 24 and BM and EGM resolution passed in January 24?
यस यस, बिल्कुल फाइल कर सकते हो, कोई लेट फीस वगैरह नहीं लगेगी उसमें। वो तो आपने डिसीजन किसी पर्टिकुलर पॉइंट पे ले लिया, उस पे ये नहीं कि उस पर्टिकुलर पॉइंट से लेके आपको विद इन 30 डेज STK 2 फाइल करना है, वैसा कुछ नहीं है। आप एक साल बाद भी करोगे तब भी उस टाइम को जो MGT 14 फाइल हुआ है, जो है आपने SR पास किया, वो एप्लीकेबल रहेगा तब भी।
ओके, कोई पेनल्टी नहीं है आप कह रहे हो, राइट? ओके, प्रीति जी का एबियंस वाला क्वेश्चन ले लेते हैं। प्लीज एक्सप्लेन हु आर रिक्वायर्ड टू फाइल DPT 3। तनवीर शॉर्ट में बता दो प्लीज।
देखिए, DPT 3 मोस्टली अगर अपन ब्रीफ में बात करें तो दो टाइप की कंपनीज को फाइल करना है। एक जिन्होंने डिपॉजिट्स लिए हुए हैं, जो कि आपको रेयर केस में मिलेगा, मोस्टली पब्लिक कंपनीज में, मतलब प्राइवेट कंपनीज में आपको नहीं मिलेगा। दूसरा रहता है कि देर आर ट्रांजेक्शंस अदर देन डिपॉजिट्स विच आल्सो इंक्लूड्स कि डायरेक्टर से अनसिक्योर्ड लोन लिया है, बैंक से लिया हुआ है लोन आपने, कुछ आपको गवर्नमेंट से कुछ ग्रांट मिला XYZ। अब वो बहुत लंबी लिस्ट है ना। अब वो लिस्ट में कहीं पे भी अगर वो फॉल कर रहे हैं तो उन्हें फाइल करना है, अदरवाइज नहीं करना। एक पॉइंट इसमें और ये है कि अगर उस लिस्ट में आप फॉल भी कर रहे हो तो आपका आउटस्टैंडिंग बैलेंस अगर एज ऑन 31 मार्च है तभी आपको फाइल करना है। ड्यूरिंग द ईयर ट्रांजेक्शन होकर खत्म हो गया तो आपको उसको फाइल नहीं करना है।
ओके, चिराग जी उसमें सब्सिक्वेंट क्वेश्चन पूछ रहे हैं कि ड्यू डेट क्या होगी सब्सिक्वेंट ऑडिटर जब, बेसिकली आई थिंक ही इज आस्किंग अगर सब्सिक्वेंट ऑडिटर अपॉइंट कर रहे हैं और ADT 1 वो फाइल कर रहे हैं उसके लिए, तो ड्यू डेट क्या रहती है उसकी जनरली?
सब्सिक्वेंट ऑडिट, एक्चुअली क्या ये क्वेश्चन थोड़ा सा मुझे क्लियर नहीं लग रहा है कि ये आप कैजुअल वैकेंसी के केस में पूछ रहे हैं, या मान लीजिए कि 5 साल का टेन्योर था वो एंड हो गया है, उसके बाद किसी फ्रेश
ओके,
ऑर्डर कर रहे हैं, तो
इन
वो थोड़ा
दैट
सा।
सिनेरियो हेड ऑफिस प्लीज अलाउ चिराग जी टू स्पीक। हेड ऑफिस प्लीज अलाउ चिराग जी टू स्पीक। तब तक हम अंकुश जी का क्वेश्चन ले लेते हैं CHG 4 का। लोन रीपेड इन 2015 एंड स्टिल CHG 4 नॉट फाइल, कैन वी टेक NOC ऑन करंट डेट एंड फाइल CHG 4?
ये एक्चुअली जब तक मेरे पास केस नहीं आएगा ना पूरा, तब तक मैं नहीं बता पाऊंगा।
तनवीर जी आप अपना नंबर दे दो चैट बॉक्स में। अंकुश जी यू कैन गेट इन टच विद तनवीर जी और यू कैन डिस्प्ले इट ऑन स्क्रीन तनवीर, योर फोन नंबर एंड योर email ID. अंकुश जी कैन गेट इन टच विद यू फॉर दैट।
चिराग जी ऑन।
चिराग जी प्लीज प्लीज टेल योर क्वेरी।
तो मैम मेरे को जानना है कि अगर ऑडिटर मैनेजमेंट चेंज कर देते हैं, कैजुअल वैकेंसी वन इज ऑप्शन, कैजुअल वैकेंसी थ्रू दैट ऑडिटर रिजाइन फ्रॉम द सीट एंड द अदर सिनेरियोस वेयर द मैनेजमेंट वांट्स टू चेंज द ऑडिटर, तो इन दोनों सिनेरियो में कैसे फाइल होता है, फाइलिंग कैसे होता है, क्या प्रोसेस है उसका?
देखिए, अगर अगर ऑडिटर रिजाइन कर देता तो मैंने अभी मेंशन कर ही दिया था कि आपको विद इन 30 डेज ऑफ रेजिग्नेशन आपको BM कंडक्ट करनी है और उसके विद इन 60 डेज आपको EGM कंडक्ट करके नया ऑडिटर अपॉइंट कर देना है। दैट इज वेरी क्लियर। बट आपको जो दूसरा क्वेश्चन है विद रिस्पेक्ट टू कि अगर कंपनी ने ही चाहा है कि वो किसी ऑडिटर को रिमूव कर दे और फिर वो किसी का अपॉइंट करे, तो उसके लिए पहले कंपनी को ADT 2 फाइल करके गवर्नमेंट से परमिशन लेनी पड़ेगी। इफ ओनली इफ गवर्नमेंट अलाउस, गवर्नमेंट मींस यहाँ पे RD जो रीजनल डायरेक्टर है, इफ दैट RD इज सेटिस्फाइड कि आपका जो कंसर्न है और द रीजनिंग विच यू हैव फॉर रिमूविंग दैट ऑडिटर वो अगर वैलिड है, ओनली देन इट वुड बी अलाउड। एंड इन दैट इज ऑल्सो द ऑडिटर ऑफ द कंपनी इज गिवन एन अपॉर्चुनिटी ऑफ बीइंग हर्ड बाय द RD कि वो अपना बताएगा पॉइंट की क्या है क्या नहीं। अगर RD सेटिस्फाई फिर होता है कि कंपनी इज स्टैंडिंग ऑन द राइट ग्राउंड, ओनली देन द RD वुड अलाउ यू to proceed with appointing another auditor. Otherwise, in normal cases, नहीं अलाउ होता है, बट मान के चलिए कि अगर उन्होंने अलाउ कर दिया, ठीक है, देन फिर ड्यू डेट्स का वही सेम सिनेरियो है कि आपने 30 डेज में बीएम करना है, फिर ईजीएम कर देनी है और अपॉइंट कर देना है।
थैंक यू सर।
तनवीर जी एक क्वेश्चन बीच में मिस हो गया हमारे पास। प्लीज एडवाइज इफ रजिस्टर्स कैन बी मेंटेन्ड इन कंप्यूटर। राज गोयल जी पूछ रहे हैं।
हाँ हाँ, कर सकते हैं।
एंड उनका सेक्शन 90 नोटिस पे एक और क्वेश्चन है ऑल्सो रिगार्डिंग सेक्शन 90 नोटिस। सपोज कंपनी हैज ओनली 3 डायरेक्टर्स विद नो अदर शेयर होल्डर, इज इट एप्लीकेबल?
अब ये मेरे को कंपनी के डिटेल्स अलग से भेज देंगे तो मैं बता दूंगा देख के।
Raj sir, if you are still with us or you are hearing us on YouTube, request you to please share the company details with Tanveer ji. Tanveer ji, request you to please share your contact details with our participants.
हाँ, मेरे चैट बॉक्स में।
And if you would like to share your email ID on YouTube as well, it would be great. And this was the last of the questions. सिर्फ प्रीति जी का डेफिनेशन ऑफ डिपॉजिट्स रह गया है. आई अपोलोजाइज मैम, रिक्वेस्ट यू टू प्लीज गेट इन टच विद तनवीर सर फॉर अ डिटेल्ड डिस्कशन ऑन दिस.
वो सेपरेटली आप मुझे कांटेक्ट कर लेना सो दैट आई कैन एक्चुअली गो थ्रू द सिचुएशन की एग्जैक्टली क्या है, तब मैं बता पाऊंगा. मैं अभी अपनी डिटेल्स डाल देता हूँ स्क्रीन पे.
एब्सोल्युटली. आप शेयर स्क्रीन करके डाल दीजिए.
ठीक है, विजिबल है?
नहीं, अभी आपने शेयर स्क्रीन जस्ट वन. हाँ, अभी शेयर स्क्रीन कर दिया आपने. इफ एनीबडी वांट्स टू टेक अ स्क्रीनशॉट दे कैन डू दैट. दे कैन ऑलवेज गेट इन टच विद तनवीर इन केस दे हैव एनी फर्दर क्वेरीज जो हम नहीं यहाँ पर एड्रेस कर पाए हैं. कोई स्पेसिफिक क्वेरी है, you can always reach out to Manu as well. He's also available on LinkedIn, and you can take his number from me if you want. And of course, Tanveer se bhi you can always get in touch with through me if it is required. और कल भी हम लोग एक छोटा सा वेबिनार कर रहे हैं with our founder CA Sanjay Agarwal tomorrow morning at 11:30, where he is going to talk very candidly कि क्या इनिशिएटिव्स उन्होंने आज तक लिए हैं, क्या वो आगे करना चाहते हैं और क्यों आप उनको अगले इलेक्शन में वापस लेके आए. Thank you so much, Tanveer. Thank you for joining us today and taking out the time. And I thank all the participants जो आखिरी तक हमारे साथ जुड़े रहे. I hope कि बहुत सारे लोग YouTube पे ये सेशन देखें and they are able to add some value to their practice. All right. Thanks, Tanveer.
Okay.
Head office, you can close the webinar now.